Oh, here we go. All right, live from Bolton. It's Thursday night. Good evening, everyone. This is Thursday, August 18, 2016, and this is the Board of Selectmen meeting. First up on our agenda is to get an update on the facility issues at Emerson and Florence schools from the district. Come on down.
Thanks for having us. I want to introduce Superintendent Brooke Clenchy. Those of you who haven't
Good to
met
see you
her.
again.
Nice to see you.
And
Pleasure's mine.
Tom Frame,
Is it
Jim
Tom?
Wysocki,
Tom, nice to meet you.
Jonathan Keith.
Jonathan, nice to meet you.
And then Superintendent has brought with her Pat Maroney, who's our business manager, and Jeff Converse, who's the district director of facilities.
Yeah, and I would like to do, can you bring that chair forward? Or? Yeah, perfect.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone tonight?
Great, thank you.
Good.
And then today.
Hi.
That's all right.
All right, so the purpose of this meeting, which we have about 12 minutes or so, is just to basically get an update on where we are with.
Right, so the last school committee meeting, the superintendent shared with us several areas within the facilities, functions with, specifically in the Bolton schools, that need some attention. And she has been, from the moment she walked in the door, working on these facilities issues with her staff, and actually kind of impressed with the amount of work that they've done. And I think tonight she's going to provide an update on where we are, what's coming, and I think it's only fair to say that the discussions have been daily with her staff and at least weekly, if not more frequently in person with Don Lowe and at least one or two of the other administrators in the towns. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Clenchy.
Thank you. First, it's just a pleasure to be here, so thank you so much for inviting us. I also want to extend a thanks to Lorraine and to the school committee who've been so supportive through this process. I also want to call out Don Lowe because he's been amazing. We've met, as you likely well know, but I just want to reaffirm, we've met every Monday morning, I think since I came on board.
I think so. Every
Every Monday morning at 9:30 we meet. And I would say most of the time, Ryan McNutt also from Lancaster joins us, and Bill Rigby has joined us as well on one occasion. And not only do we have those 9:30 meetings, but on occasion I've called Don over for other things. So he has been a pretty regular staple over there, and it's just been amazing. And he's been very, very helpful. I also want to give a shout out to Harold. Harold has also been over to a couple of meetings and helped to provide some guidance. So we're very appreciative of the partnership between the school district and the town. When I came in, you're absolutely right. To Chairman Mosco's perspective, there were many things that were presented. Just as outgoing Superintendent Dr. Bates was leaving and I was coming in, there seemed to be an onion of layers of things that arose. And with all new administration coming in, I think we had a really positive approach. Richard also was a huge help along the way to support us. This is part of a 12-page document right now. This is just the part that belongs to Bolton. And so Pat has extracted that out. And so I would want to be cautious as we put this forward because, for example, the numbers that are in there are the numbers to our best estimate at this point in time. We have not received actual invoices yet, which is, of course, your first clue when you see the zeros, right? Because they're not actual numbers, in terms of dollars and cents. These are still estimates. But these are the best estimates that we had, and that this is what we worked off of. Again, to Chairman Ramosko's perspective, in terms of pointing out that we met daily, to say we had one meeting a day would be an understatement. Mm-hmm. Very often it was 6 times a day as we worked through every single thing. And then when we were able to start to put green on the items to say these things are completed, it was a very good feeling. The wastewater, so I'm just going to quickly go through these and then we'll open it up, and if you've got further questions, any of us would be happy to take the question. If we don't have an answer for you tonight, we will be honest with you tonight. If we don't have an answer, we'll get back to you on it.
Could I just say at the outset, as you're going through, can you describe exactly the place and where it is?
Sure.
Because I don't see that, like
Yeah.
what classrooms.
No,
are there?
exactly, because this is our working document,
Yeah.
so you're right. And in fact, I mean, even the note field is really brief and bulleted. I mean, this doesn't show at all the amount of work that has gone into this. So thank you for giving me
But I mean,
the
if
opportunity to
children
say
were
that.
exposed,
No, I'm
we
going to go
should
through
know
that.
which children, which classroom.
I will absolutely go through that, absolutely. So the wastewater treatment plant, that's just been ongoing, as you well know. We've kind of taken a step back, as the school district has at this point in time. We've been working together with the town. We've gotten some estimates, which we've forwarded along, and I believe Wendy, you got them as well. So we're just kind of sitting tight on that particular project, which is why you don't see a lot of work on that. It's not for lack of meetings. We've had a number of meetings on it. It's just that at this point in time, we're just sitting tight on it. The good news for us is that for the school department is that this can happen at any point in time and we will not have to close the school down. And that's one of the things, when we took a look at the priorities, we really did take a look at schools and the level of impact each of those schools would experience. For example, like the fire pump at the high school or those kinds of things, those rose to be a #1 priority. The other thing I would say is this does not show all of the work that's been done in the buildings. This just shows the key major priorities, the major projects that we undertook. So for example, we've done an awful lot of painting, particularly in the newer Emerson wing. That's not on here. We also did some painting in the older wing. That's not on here. So these are just the key #1 priorities that we have been paying the most amount of attention
Maybe
to.
also, as you can go through this, could you highlight things that were, let's say, more of a surprise, like the wastewater treatment, as opposed to things that perhaps had been already either planned or where monies had been allocated in the past, and perhaps the work is just getting done now, because there was a period of time in the past where the town had voted monies for certain projects to get done. And we realized at one point there was a balance of like $112,000 for projects that we had approved but had not been done. So if you could, like, we know the wastewater treatment plant is something that maybe one of those layers of the onion, but some of the other things where that might have been completed, that were planned to be completed, that might have been budgeted to be completed, or you had the funds in hand to do that.
I don't know that I would be a good barometer on that. I can certainly walk you through what I know.
Sure.
And then, Don, if you can help me.
I think it's fair to say that very little of those funds are reflected in here. Much of that was spent in the last year. In the previous year, there was a rush to spend after we highlighted that issue. I worked quite a bit of that with Dr. Bates. So I'd say very little of that is reflected in here.
Okay, so more of it is more of a, as you peel that onion back.
Yeah, I would say that that's fair to say. I mean, I certainly was aware of the money that was had been set aside, for example, for boilers as such, and I think that was really for an engineering plan. That didn't come through to fruition. That I believe that there was about $12,000, for example, that was set aside for that. There was about $5,000, for example, that was set aside for carpets. But of that $5,000, even most of that I think had been spent
No, it was
as well.
entirely spent.
Yeah.
Right.
So to be honest, to your point, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
This calendar year it was entirely spent.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so I will just go through, and I think I'll also mention why some of this has happened too. So the former kitchen renovation is probably the last project that we're finishing up right now. I would say we're only about a third of the way through that. And this actually is where we want to put the extended day program, which currently sits in the old Emerson wing. And it's in one of the areas where there was lead paint detected. And so I think that when I came in, this was even before I knew about the lead paint, quite frankly. And I thought, it would make sense programmatically from my perspective that we have all of the children in the newer Emerson wing. And so that was really the premise that I started with before I started realizing all of these other things. So the former kitchen renovation, it's a beautiful space there. It's right off of the gymnasium. And our biggest expense there was to try to get the huge equipment that's in there kind of dismantled. And again, we can go into greater detail after I go through everything. And then Jeff can throw in anything that you'd like to toss in for informational purposes. So we've got, I think most of that has now been dismantled. There are one or two things that are still connected. G&L was in the other day pulling some of the last lines. So I think we're ready to move all of that out. Simplexus has been in working on the fire suppression system. That's getting close to being wrapped up as well, and then we can paint it up, get the carpet in there, and then move the extended day out of its present location and into that. The number 3 item is the water leaking in the floor. This was in room 2 in the new Emerson wing. So as you walk into the building, there were a couple of leaks in Emerson. That was all new to me. We had an area just in front of the main office area. There was a leak coming in the foyer area, if you will. And if you turn that first corner and went down, the second classroom on the left is room 2. And there was a leak there in the floor. And I think that they found it, I think because there was an odor and some moisture, excessive moisture. When we pulled it open, because all of those pipes run the entire U of the let's say the grade 3 and 4 wing as such, and they're all encased in cement. And so there was a leak there. We're not sure how long the leak had been there. I think for a fair amount of time. It wasn't a gushing leak. It was nothing like that. But it was enough of a leak to create a problem. One of the problems it created was mold. And so we were able to, first of all, assess that there was no asbestos in the area at all. That was the first thing we did, was tested for that. And then we were able to get ServPro in, and they did a great job of cleaning up the entire area so that there's no mold in there at all. We were able to fix the leak and then put everything back into place. It's all carpeted now, and room 2 is it's a completely finished project now.
Can I just ask you real quick, so asbestos abatement in number 2, and it says waiver granted, does that mean none was disturbed and none floating around? Do people need to be tested?
No, so when the reason the waiver, what this particular waiver is, and that's the problem with getting just a partial sheet, a working sheet from us, that waiver was so that we didn't have to wait a 10-day period before we went in to do anything. And so we got a waiver for each of the asbestos areas. There were a total of 4, and so we asked for the waiver for all of them, so that when we went into test, if we found it, which we didn't find it here, but the other areas we did, and we were able to have the waiver so we could get in and fix it right away and not have a 10-day wait period. So that's what that particular waiver was for.
But was the asbestos loose? Was it on, was it floating?
No, in this room there, in room 2, there was absolutely no asbestos found. We did the testing, but there was no asbestos found.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was completely clean. Okay, over the page. The OT room. The OT room, the occupational therapy room in the older Emerson wing, was downstairs, and it's actually facing the front area as you pull in there. It's kind of right in the middle of the section there. And again, we did appropriate testing in there, and it ended up being that we were clean with everything. There was no lead paint there was no asbestos in that particular area. It was completely clean. However, it just knowing that we were working to get all of the students out of the building for that particular area deals with not a large number of students. We were able to move that particular program off again to the gymnasium. There's a cage at the very back of the gymnasium. We used to call it a cage. We don't call it a cage now. We call it the occupational therapy room, because that's what it is now. It was a cage where a lot of storage was. When we first went in, there were no ceiling tiles, there were no lights, there was no nothing. It was just a cage. It was just a cage door. So we went in and we've renovated it, and it is now a beautiful place for our OT program to move to. So that's where they're moving to. We have started to move all of their stuff out and get it over to that location, and so that's where they are going to be. The number 5, 6, and 7 were all areas, and there you'll see that waiver effective again if you take a look over, Tom, on the right-hand side. Those are the areas where we found asbestos. Now, I want to be really cautious. The areas of asbestos that we found were very small. So it wasn't like it was a huge, I think sometimes you hear it and you think, oh my gosh, this must have been a huge area, and there was lots of flaking. That wasn't what it was.
And where is this?
5, 6, and 7.
I see that, but where in the building is it?
Sure, thank you. So the 2 bathrooms are the ones downstairs in the old Emerson building. The Emerson hallway outside of the office is exactly where it says. So as soon as you walk into the Emerson building, right to the left-hand side there, if you come in the summer, all of that ceiling tile had been removed, and we were up there working on it. First of all, we had to build a wall and abated it, and then had to fix that leak because it was leaking water as well.
But there was, so this is the ground, 5 and 6 of the ground floor of the
Old Emerson.
52, or,
Exactly.
and there was asbestos there?
Yes, like I say, the area was very small though, and I think if Jeff, memory serves me right, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the elbows of, each time it was an elbow where pipes were coming in, there was an elbow there where the, you know, just, there's
It's the wrap that goes around those pipes.
And was there loose
It's all-
asbestos?
No, the only time it's ever loose is if you have to touch it, and then there's a leak and you have to disturb it, that's where the abatement comes in. They take it out before.
But when they tested, did they test to see if it was on the floors and in the rug and that kind of thing?
They looked everywhere. I mean, when we brought the testers in, it was not just a case of going, I mean, we didn't point it out and say, there it is. We didn't really know, to be honest with you, so they went and did the full testing, is my understanding.
So I think what you're asking is, was there a risk to the students?
Exactly, yeah.
I don't think I have an answer for you on that, to be honest with you, because quite frankly, it was, the place that it was very, very high. It was in the ceiling at the very top of the restrooms.
I think we need to know.
Okay.
We need to know, those are little children, full disclosure, one of them's mine. I mean, I want to know
Okay.
if people are exposed, you know?
Happy to go back and see what we
Yeah.
can do on that. So there you see that those are all completed now, those have all been taken care of and are finished projects, each one of those.
Well, what did the testing do? Did they test the classrooms? Did they test the rugs? Did they test the walls? Or did they just, what did they do?
My understanding,
Because my understanding of asbestos is that it's, once it's disturbed, that it's, you know, it's awful if it's disturbed. So I think we need to know, you know, where children walking and asbestos.
I think they'll come back and let us know who they used and what the procedure was.
Happy to do that.
Yeah.
And certainly absolutely, we can do that. I would say too, that we did bring the testers in after we were finished everything, and every one of these places came back clean. So we did bring testers in right as soon as we were finished each one of these projects.
After you made the repair?
Yes. Yeah. That's not your question, but
No.
no, I understand what your question is, but I'm just letting you know that we did do that. The extended day painting, we're putting a hold on that number 8 right now, because I want to make sure before we go ahead with this particular project that whatever we've done, it was suggested for us to do in the stairwell has indeed encapsulated the paint that's there in the stairwell. That's the door as soon as you walk in, which is, we affectionately refer to it as a staff entrance. So it's as soon as you drive in on the parking lot there on the left-hand side, it's that particular entrance. So we did do our best to encapsulate that. We are going to bring them back in, same as I brought the other folks back in again with the asbestos, to make sure that we've done it right before we go and do something else if we haven't fixed what we needed to fix. So that's why that's sitting in white right now. The number 9 is the stairwell, which is the stairwell I was just talking about, and that is now completed. The Emerson boiler replacement is down below. That's a project that we are just, actually we didn't number that one. That's one that we're sitting on just marginally. We have not had the time or the bandwidth to go after that at a full-scale level, but we have just started that, and Jeff is leading that project right now. Again, we want to thank Dawn and Harold for coming in and spending time with us, taking a look at that. The price is there as a result of only one estimate though, and so we feel the need to go back and do a great deal more homework on that before we move anything forward.
I think it's fair to say though, that boiler's in really sad shape.
And on number 9, the lead paint, the Emerson stairwell, that's when you come in the main doors of Emerson and head upstairs,
When you're looking at the building, the very far end of the building,
the right end?
the right end,
The old.
yeah, that
That's the
side
stairwell.
door, that's where the staff comes in and out.
Okay.
It's not used regularly by the students, they come in the front door,
And where was the lead?
in the stairwell, right there,
On the inside?
yeah.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to go on, the computer lab at Emerson, this is just as a result of the fact that we had to move our pre-K out of, again, that area, that general area. They are all set now to move over. All pre-K will be able to be inside of the newer Emerson wing. There's, as you walk in, just to describe where it is, as you walk into the Emerson, you go left, the first hallway, just keep going past that first hallway. There's a whole block of classrooms in there. What we've done now is put all pre-K right there. And so we took the one only pre-K classroom that was in the old Emerson wing and have moved it to the new wing. Okay, so that's what that is there. High school, this is probably just FYI, and certainly if you've got some further questions on this, we're happy to entertain those. The fire pump, we thought we had a fix for that, and then it turned out that we had a further issue that we hadn't anticipated. So Jeff has been working on that. At first we were waiting for parts, but I believe those parts are now in, but we have to deal with the other issue that's at play on that fire pump, and we're hoping very much to have that ready before school goes back. So that's where we're sitting with the fire pump and the leaks that have been on that. The vent pipe upgrade oil tank, that's completed, but through that process of fixing that, we discovered another issue, and so we are just in the process of going after ways to remediate that, and we're not sure whether we have a small issue or a bigger issue with that particular oil tank. And so Jeff is working again with the companies on that and getting down there to deal with that particular one. And that particular tank is encased in cement, and in essence, it was never affixed appropriately to the cement block that it's in, and so some water's gotten in there, so the tank is actually kind of floating in there. It's kind of buoyant. So we just need to go in, and that's one of the reasons why the actual vent pipe was broken as such. So that's where that particular oil tank sits, and as I say, Jeff is working on that right now. The leach field, this is something that again, we are looking into. I guess we want to make sure that we're not in a grandfathered situation with that leach field and don't realize it. So this will be something that we'll look after. We've got a 2-year hold that we're able to work within. So that, although that's in a priority list for us, it's on the top of our list right now. Right now we want to get the kids back in school and get the buildings all ready. So this we'll probably put a little bit more focus on in September, October. Down below there, the district, those are the tank inspections. The exterior inspections, right now, there you see the $900 and $1,000 for the high school, and that's where we're sitting at with tanks that are linked to you. And those are the highlights for this summer for the work that we've been trying feverishly to get through.
So I'm just going to cut back to what I view as a very important question. Were children exposed to asbestos and lead?
And I think they said they will go back and get that answer for you. They're not in a position to give you an answer to that.
Well, maybe she can say it, so that's all right.
Well, the truth was, in all fairness, Tom, I wasn't in the district. I don't know how many kids went in and out. I don't even know what entranceway the kids used, to be honest with you. So I appreciate, Stan, you saying that, because you're absolutely right. I really don't know. So if I did, I would tell you. Right now, I really don't know. I don't, for example, you might know better than I do if kids use that restroom. I don't even know if kids use that restroom.
Like they do?
Yeah, see, I don't know that. So that's what I'm saying.
I think
Because
that's what
yeah.
the bathrooms that was opposite the pre-K, right?
Yes, well, right in that neck of the woods, that's
corner,
correct.
yeah.
Yes, there's one on the same side as pre-K and one across from pre-K.
Is that the boys' room?
No, it was both, boys and girls.
The boys' room with the
Yes, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, and the top ceiling.
right,
Yeah.
so that before Superintendent Clinch came and this all started to be discovered, I was with Dr. Bates, and I think Richard Maglione at the time, And what he told us was there was like a small hole in the ceiling tile, and that's where the asbestos was. And at the time, the question that we had was, how did that impact the kids? And they said unless somebody went up there and started poking at it, that it wouldn't have. But that was just, you know, I'm not a professional, so.
But if they've cleaned up, if they didn't do any testing before they cleaned up, how's anyone gonna know?
No, we did testing before we cleaned up.
You
That's why we
tested the
did.
environment?
I don't know the extent of the testing.
Okay.
I just know that's how we knew it was there.
And the same thing with the lead, because the danger with lead is it blows around.
If it's disturbed.
If it just automatically, you know, flicks and by movement, by friction.
For whatever it's worth, my understanding is that the layer of the lead paint that was there was several layers deep. It wasn't like it was the front layer or even the second or third layer. It was several layers thick where the lead paint was.
But whose jurisdiction is it to make sure that the classrooms are safe within the school department, or is that the town?
That would be an interesting question because the town owns the buildings, right?
Town owns the building, but I want to be clear, the town was not responsible for the maintenance of the building, the district was.
Yeah, so that's where it's a gray area. I would agree. Oh, probably not gray in your
It's not
mind.
gray to me at all, it's black and white. It's black and white as it gets.
I mean, is there a policy in place where these are supposed to be, the older buildings are supposed to be, you know, made sure they're compliant with lead and asbestos and stuff that everyone knows is horrible for people?
I don't know if you have a policy here.
I don't know that we have a policy on that specifically.
Yeah, I'm not aware of one.
So a lot of schools have been testing their water in Boston. I just wondered if you've done water tests, tests the water fountains.
We did do, and it came up within the past 6 months, well, it was, Bill Clary was still here, so the former, your predecessor, the former facilities director came to the school committee. It was right around the time we were doing budget discussions. So it must have been February, March, and he said that because that was a concern of ours, that the water had been tested and the water was fine. I think if we need to, we could probably pull those reports and share those, yeah, with the community.
I'm happy to go back after to see if I can find them. I didn't realize that they'd been done.
Yeah.
Certainly haven't been done in my time.
Wasn't he the one who's kind of hidden some of the
He was the
issues?
former facilities director.
Okay, so I just
We'll get the reports.
double check.
Right.
And I'll go back after and check out with the asbestos testing too to make sure.
Thank you very much.
Other questions?
I'm good at the moment. We'll just, you know, monitor this and questions.
Superintendent Clenchey, when do you think would be timely to come back and give the selectmen an update?
I think probably about mid-September, I think we would be ready to come back again.
One thing, I think asbestos, lead, and water needs to be done ASAP before people get back into school. I mean, if the water test should be done immediately. We should know with
Well, we need to
certainty
see
is
if we
there lead
have
in
the
there or
reports,
not.
and we will. And if, I know he said it was recently tested within this year. So we gotta go back and pull those reports and see what that was. And if we can't find the reports, then we'll talk about doing them quickly. But as far as the lead, I wasn't involved in the lead and the asbestos abatement. And I think your question is, what was the risk prior to the fix?
Right.
So we would have to go back to the organizations that did that work to
And
find
see.
out.
And that's what I think that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that's
there
what I'm
could
gonna
be
go
years
back
of
to.
exposure
I have no idea. Yeah.
to children.
We understand.
And I mean, in the water test is a quick, easy fix. I mean, you could have that within a few days. I think that, I mean,
Probably better, you know what, maybe what we should do is do a retest
yes, I
and
agree.
not
And
even
ignore
worry,
the old one.
ignore the
Yeah.
old one. We'll just order new testing right away.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Just so I'm clear, I want to make sure, like, are you looking for us to do further asbestos testing?
I mean, I assume that after, I assume there was some cleaning done, that the people who came in, they're professional, they're licensed, they know what they're doing, they
That's
know the
exactly right.
parameters in which the loose asbestos goes.
Right.
It spreads, that's what it does, and you ingest, you breathe it, and it goes on your lung tissue and it causes cancer. And so I assume that they knew that there was a parameter around the leak, and so they hopefully tested for that prior to cleaning.
They did, you know
Prior
what?
to clean, let me just get this out.
All right,
Okay, so, and the same thing with the lead. Was there a test done prior in time so that they could say, well, yeah, the lead spread, but it's only spread where the administration was or something, I don't know. Or the asbestos spread, but it didn't spread down into the bathroom, on the walls, the kids didn't track it into the classrooms. These are little kids who are on the rug. You know, where's the asbestos? It travels. That's the risk of it. Unless it's encapsulated, and then it doesn't. But once it's loose, it floats, and that's the risk. So hopefully the tester, the engineer, or whoever came in, did that assessment first so people could know if there was a risk to people's health. You know, and if they vacuumed it all up after they were done, then we'll never know, you know.
well, if it was disturbed, my understanding is that it would still be in the air.
I don't know.
And I will tell you that the organization that came in to do the abatement in the area off the gym, I walked in while they were setting up, and it was like a
Because they're
bubble.
supposed to do a reverse thing so that it's blown outside. They're supposed to,
They had a vacuum.
yeah.
We need to find out. We need to find out before this goes any further, and then we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
We need to find out. Because right now, it's a big, scary, horrible thing.
Suppose the employees.
Well, we understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not an easy discussion to have, understanding that it hasn't been an easy find to find. So we will get the information and we will get back to you, but as severe and frightened as you are, it's as concerned as we are.
I think that that's right. I really appreciate you saying that, because for somebody like me, who's an educator, you're in education because you love children. That's why you do the job. So for somebody like me, this is every bit as
Yeah, and
important
I
as
know
it
you
is
just
as
got
a
on the
parent.
job, I get that.
Yeah, 20-some days.
But we gotta find out.
It's at hand.
Right, understood.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda is a discussion, have to discuss the proposed town budget meeting with the Board of Selectmen, Advisory Committee, Capital Planning Committee, Town Administrator, Treasurer, and Accountant. Folks from the Advisory Committee would like to come on up?
Yes, we'll get them on. Yeah.
Good evening, folks, how are you?
Well, how are you?
Good. And I know Brad, as chairman of the advisory committee, you were the individual who sort of prompted wanting to set this up, and that's why it's on the agenda.
Yeah, where this all came about was probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. Ted, brought us up to speed on the town of Northborough has a town administrator, and he does these presentations. So it was on YouTube, and he passed around the link to us, so we had a chance to take a look at it. And it related to financial modeling, and it's something that has been of interest to me, just in terms of analytics, looking at the budget and taking this budget and saying, okay, given these set of facts, these numbers, can we look and start to predict out into the future to at least make some assumptions so that we can start to get a little better handle of what the town might be facing in the future. And so as we kept on discussing that, that was going on, but then also just working with advisory and the selectmen. 2 years ago, we tried to get together. I was working with Larry back then, and it just got away from us, and we never were able to get together as a group, and we just went into budget season. And then there was a philosophical difference on free cash, right? Last year, same thing. But we did get a chance to get together, at least briefly at the start, the selectmen and advisory. And so, what we have been trying to do is make it more formal, in a workshop type of environment, and really just try to get the key folks on the selectmen, advisory, capital planning together, talk about what we're likely going to be facing in the coming year, what we all want to try and accomplish, knowing the directive that Dawn has sent out to the town departments. So in the course of all this, I reached out to John Codier, the town administrator for Northborough. We got to talk, and he says, yeah, sure, I can come in, give a presentation. And as we were talking, I was leaning towards this, financial forecasting. He's like, well, why don't we just do a best practices? Because I was given the makeup, new members on advisory, new members on selectmen. And so he's like, I would rather, I personally think what could be beneficial, instead of building up for the future, let's just do a best practices. It's an hour and a half. So that's where that came about. And so even though I had spoken to Dawn prior, and Dawn's like, yeah, go ahead, give him a call. As I was getting off the phone with John, he's like, I know you said you spoke to Dawn, but I want to hear from Dawn directly. And I get it, and he's very conscious. He doesn't want to be coming into town and upsetting the apple cart, whatever dynamic is going on between selectmen and town administrator and advisory and all that. And so that's where I left it. I spoke with Don a week and a half ago and brought him up to speed on where we were, and so that's...
So I can fill in some blanks from there. When I returned from Saratoga, I had a voicemail waiting for me from John, who said, don't call me this week because now I'm on vacation, but call me when you call me next week. So I did. And I have to say, John is an outstanding town manager. He's very highly respected by his colleagues, including me. And he actually does similar presentations for MMA. So he's really, really highly skilled in this. And he did call me, and as a professional courtesy, that's what we would all do. Just to say, hey, I got this call, but I want to make sure that you're okay with this. And I said, I'm totally fine with it. I think it's a great idea. I endorse it totally. Glad that it's you that we're talking to. So that being said, we will talk in the next week or two again to strategize a bit more. But we had the same conversation that you had, about talking about best practices and how by doing this we can hopefully get all the boards on the same page, marching towards the same outcomes, and then we have a consistent message that we can give, and that by the time we get to town meeting, all the wrinkles have been ironed out, and we can say to people who may not believe about the level of scrutiny that is done to the budget every year, that we have followed best practice principles. This is what we've done, and this has been a collaborative effort through all the boards, and it should. He told me that in the, I think he said 7 or 8 years since he's been doing it. He started in Northborough about the time I did, and he said that he has never had a budget. He's never had an unsuccessful budget season, and he's always had very smooth town meetings by following these practices.
Exactly, and that's that was my thought, that we can all still disagree on various components, but if we at least have a basic framework at the start going in, and work towards these best practices, it should translate into an overall smooth process, and so that's the idea.
No, I think it's a good idea, and also to your point, we do have a number of new members on the select board and advisory. And I think it's good to give them a bit of a preview so they understand the process as it exists today. And perhaps, maybe, put a line in the sand that says, we'd like to have a target of X dollars of free cash.
Exactly.
That would be the goal. And obviously, as
whether it's that, whether it's whatever other metric or component.
Right. Exactly. Because as you know, we go through and things pop up at the last minute, and we have to make adjustments and take from here and put over there. But if we can come up with, we'd like to have X, Y, and Z as part of the goals, and sort of educate some of the new folks in the process, so that those questions aren't being asked in January, February, March, and April.
Yeah,
Brad, do you have a couple of dates in mind? I mean, when I discussed it with John, he said that, he would much prefer doing an evening. He said if it had to be a Saturday morning, he would.
yeah, no, I mean, all it was really, where I left it with John was, he wanted to talk to you. I mentioned, sometime in September, potentially early October, and he did stress, he's like, I would prefer, a weeknight, and, an hour and a half. I mean, you guys are gonna be here, significantly longer than an hour and a half tonight, so what's an hour and a half? And the idea was, if we get this in place, ahead of your letter going out to department heads, and refresh my memory, that goes out,
Early to mid-October.
all right,
Maybe second week of October normally, I think.
yeah. So that was the idea, right? Get us all together ahead of that letter. The
Which
letter.
I always put together in conjunction with consulting with you.
No, I'm not saying you don't. So the letter goes out, right? They get their marching orders in terms of what we collectively are looking for the department heads to come back to with a budget. The budgets come in, the town accountant puts it all together, and then it's January and we're off to the races.
Yeah, perhaps as part of it also, while it hasn't been successful in the past, and we might want to draft something to sort of tell the district, this is what we'd like to see an increase or not in the assessment be.
Yeah, and so, without getting too far ahead of the course here, John also mentioned, there's an organization that kind of oversees governmental budgets, and there's a various awards or certificates that can be achieved. And so ideally, I haven't fully looked into what is involved in working towards that. So for example, if it requires 3 extra men on a salary for $50,000, I don't think we're going to be going towards that, right? So
Right.
I don't know what all the criteria is to attain this particular award. But the idea is, I feel as though it's something that we can, start working on, whether it's a 3 or a 5-year goal. Worst case would be something that the town of Bolton can be proud of, that their budget has received this award. But what John was saying to me was it also is one that is very rigorous in terms of information, so it's there, right?
Yeah.
And it is in collaboration with the school committee. It's my understanding that the town can't even get this award without working closely with the school committee.
Yeah.
So again, it's much further down the road, but again, I have my eyes on that to start towards, if we can get best practices in place, an agreement and a formula in place and structure moving forward. To me, that's a good thing, so that 3, 5, 8 years from now, we're not here, but the structure is
Right.
in place, and someone can step into this and very quickly get up to speed and continue on without having to recreate the wheel
I
as
agree.
these seats constantly rotate.
I agree. I mean, maybe we could do this in one of your Tuesday meetings before it gets
Yeah.
locked up.
Yeah, absolutely.
This way, in case, our meeting lines up with a lot of stuff. I don't think you guys are gonna be too busy until
I hope we're not.
the latter part of the fall.
January
Yeah, I know.
after that is enough, so
Okay,
that's the idea.
okay, no, that sounds good. I think it's a great idea.
So if you can get us a couple of recommended dates, then we can start getting the word out. People will hold the dates, and if you want to coordinate with John, that's fine. If you want me to do it, that's fine too. We'll put whatever you want.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope, just one other question I have is, are you planning to stay for the discussion about the ambulance
Yeah, I was gonna stay a little
Okay.
bit longer.
Okay, great. No, I'm good. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up on our agenda is a discussion of, for the process of updating the open space and master plan.
So I can update us on that, Mr. Chairman. We, as you know, when it looked like we were going to be pursuing the grant for the acquisition of Camp Virginia, working in concert with the Sudbury Valley Conservation Trust, Liz Luke Klaus led a group of people to start working on the open space plan. And then the option of pursuing that grant at that time stopped. So pretty much along with that concentrated effort stopped. And there hasn't been a lot done on that since. And if they really do need, that group really needs to be able to work with a conservation agent, which we're still in the process of trying to hire. So there hasn't been a lot done there since that period of time, so since late June, early July. So it's kind of on hold for now, but everyone knows that it is an important thing to accomplish, and hopefully we'll start moving again once we fill that position. As far as the master plan goes, there has been no work done on the master plan for some time. And I believe it was done, Jonathan may remember better than me, but I think it was 2006. Is that right?
That was before my time, I think, on the board.
I think it was about 2006.
I think that's about it. 2005,
Because,
2006 was the last.
Because I read some of it before I interviewed for the job here, and I think so. It was certainly before my time, so I think 2006 is probably about right. So it probably is time for another look at the master plan. Don't know that it needs to be totally revised, but it will at least need to be updated. So we'll need to work on sorting out. I would need to look at what the type of group was that worked on it last time, and then see what we can do about assembling a team to start working on that again. And I think I'd certainly ask Erica to help lead the effort on that.
Okay, good. All right.
But that's like a subcommittee.
Yes, exactly right.
Okay.
So on the open space, we're just waiting for an agent
Yes.
to be hired.
That's right. Because they feel it's critical to be able to work with that person and have them take the ball and run with it.
There is some.
Identify yourself. Identify yourself. Thank you.
Al Ferry.
Thank you.
There is some activity going on. Kathy and I found a lot of gathered together material, Carol, that put together stuff. We opened the Dropbox for the group. And we're sharing now in the process of sorting through 50% for Kathy. There's Kathy and the other people that gathered examples of questionnaires that is part of this thing, and it's one of the things that takes some time to explain. So there is some background to everything that we mentioned earlier.
Good.
That's great.
Good.
What's going on with Kathy? Is she going to continue for a while?
Yes, she is going to continue on for a while.
One more question about Kathy. Is she able to perform the duties of signing off on the things that the administrator for the sign off?
Yes, I believe she is. And she is acting in the capacity as we're double teaming, but yes, they're working in the capacity of an agent. I mean, she may have to run it past Jackie, but we should have that covered.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Martha Remington, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to mention, I know that Carol had started work on this revision, I think it was in 2011. And
On
open
what,
space-
I'm sorry?
On the open space.
Carol did start some preliminary work on it
And
before
I
she
think it
left.
just got so busy, she was nagging people, to read your section and try to update. I think it just got so busy, she couldn't really
Yeah.
handle it.
She had restarted the effort probably in late winter, early spring 2015, and then,
But even before that, because I have a.
No, I understand
She
that.
wrote me, so.
but she was actually working on it, starting to work on it again in 2015.
Oh, okay.
And then she left in May 2015.
Yeah, it is a tremendous job, even about me.
Oh, it is, it's an awful lot of work.
We have that material that she did in 2011.
All right. Yeah, no other questions, then we'll move on to our next discussion, which is a discussion regarding cable coverage for the town boards and committees. This is a continuation of discussion we had specifically about broadcasting Board of Health. Chris, want to come on down? How are you this evening?
Very well, sir. Very well. I discussed this with my colleagues. When we came up with broadcast policy, I think we have it in the packet. The Board of Health will decline Bolton Access Television's offer to broadcast the twice monthly regular meetings. Hearings that involve more than the owner and direct abutters, who are notified directly, will be broadcast at Bolton Access Television's discretion. Hearings, as required by state law, involving changes to Board of Health regulations will be broadcast at Bolton Access Television's discretion. The Board of Health will attend by invitation any joint meetings concerning bylaws, policies, projects, regardless of whether the meeting is broadcast.
Which is to the extent of, almost the extent of what we discussed the last time.
Yes. So there it is in writing, and you will note that I respected Bolton Access Television as part of the free press. Everything is at their discretion to broadcast. Also, I said we declined their offer. And I recognize, as I sent a letter a while ago to the Attorney General, they have the right to broadcast our meetings if they so desire. They have offered to broadcast it, we've declined it, and they've respected that. However, if they want in the door, we have to open it, so to speak.
Right. But for the situations where that it's just that involve less than the owner and direct abutters.
Right. Just the routine meetings of cranking stuff through and working on hardship cases and the rest. I think we can do our job much better if we're not trying to do it in front of the camera.
And you create minutes for all of
Oh,
those.
yes. Our current administrative assistant, Jenny Jacobson, is excellent. She makes up the minutes, and by the next morning, she has a draft copy. By our next meeting, they're signed. When I joined the board, about 7 years ago, our administrative assistant was horribly behind in getting the minutes pulled together for signature and filing. And Michelle caught that all up, did a very good job when she was with us, and Jenny has continued. So draft copy is usually in her hands. So I guess it's not supposed to be distributed, so to speak, until we sign it. But within 2 weeks, it's available for any public review.
Right. And your meetings are noticed.
They're noticed in a full agenda before each meeting and filed, I think online, right now?
Yes.
They're online as well as,
Right, so they're online, and you can also request to have
Yep.
the meetings emailed to you.
that's right.
But they're always online.
And we're right here. We always meet at 6:30 on Tuesday nights, right in this room. We don't move around or change our meeting times, with the exception if for some reason we cannot get a quorum on a Tuesday night, because of commitments people have, and someone's really waiting for a signature to move forward with the permit, we have been known to meet early Thursday morning or whatever at Linda and Jenny's office, which is noticed, and the rest, for the simple case of taking care. Call it to order, review it, sign it, adjourn the meeting, so we don't hold people up for a
Right.
full 2 weeks if we can't make a Tuesday night.
As I had said the last time, I'm comfortable with what you proposed, so I will leave it to you two gentlemen if you have any particular issues or comments. But I'm fine with this policy.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a town board should dictate when their meetings, should be covered. I think it is in the public interest to have them on television. Not everybody can come to this room when you're meeting. A lot of people like to watch on their devices at work in the evenings later. The reason this is so important in terms of the, public health, we all share the same water supply, and we all have our own septic systems, and it's part of the checks and balances and transparency that we can all see what our boards are doing. And the Board of Selectmen, the planning board, other boards have had very, difficult issues in front of them. They've been filmed, they've been handled well. People have wanted to see what's going on. So I looked through the minutes and I really couldn't find instances where something really embarrassing came up. I can understand that if you wanted to, if there's something really embarrassing, like a house filled with animals and, smelly house that there's been some complaint about, that you might request, to have that type, that not filmed, but, I really didn't see anything in the minutes that was embarrassing at all. So I don't know why it's more comfortable for you to do this work in private. I really question that, and so I can't support. I can't support this.
Two things you have said. You started your comment, you don't think a board should dictate when they're being filmed. I'm not dictating anything. I am simply declining. Okay? You're the one who is dictating that BATCO should film this. As far as I'm concerned, it's a decision by BATCO. They should be respected as the free press. They should not just be a tool for the Board of Selectmen, okay?
So they should have the right to film you.
They have the right, sir.
No matter what's on your agenda.
They have the right. And I just said that I have confirmed that here, and I have confirmed it with the Attorney General.
Okay,
They have the right.
What does number 1 mean? The Board of Health will decline Bolton Access Television's offer to broadcast the twice monthly regular meetings.
It means exactly what it says. They offered, we declined. If they want to come, and I just explained it, they say, I'm sorry, we have the right to film you, we are broadcasting you. Our only answer is, yes, sir. All right? They have respected our request. They're a pretty good operation.
Yep, they are. So I think they came to you like 4 or 5 years ago about, filming your board, and you guys said you would resign if you were filmed. And, so I just,
I don't recall making that statement.
okay,
That's all right.
well, that's
Some other people may have on the board, but I did not.
I just don't think boards should be saying that they do their best business or they work better without being televised. I just think that's a problem.
I don't think they said that they do their best work. They are respecting individuals that are coming before them, which have no impact on the town whatsoever, and it may potentially be a somewhat embarrassing situation to the individual. I don't need to see that. You don't need to see that. the meetings are advertised, the agendas are published. If someone wants to come, if it's that important for someone to come down to hear, someone possibly, hypothetically, that there's a hoarding situation in some person's home, then they can make the trip down to the Houghton building to do that. And then if they can't, they can look at the minutes afterwards, if they're that so inclined. But no one's saying that the Board of Health does their best work. They're respecting some of the privacy issues of individuals. The policy that they have here is that if there's anything that affects the town, or it affects involving any changes in terms of bylaws and policies, by all means, that's going to be broadcast. And he's also said that if Bolton Access Television says, no, Mr. Chairman, we want to come in and film, he has no ability to stop.
Right, so Bolton Access Television wants us to come up with a policy. They don't want to come up with their own policy. So I'm just saying, I'm not comfortable with number one. I want them to film all of the meetings that they can with their budget and their schedule. No matter what's on the agenda.
Well, I think they've already come in and told you that the meetings that they do film now, they're at their max. So if I know Ken Troop came in and said if you want more meetings filmed, that they need more money.
Right, so what I want to say is we want you to cover as many meetings as you can and not pick and choose based on the Board of Health's agenda.
So I'd like to,
Go ahead.
So what I'm hearing is that you're not all gonna quit if we fund back those taping on meetings, videotaping.
I doubt it. I can't speak to the other two members.
Because that gave,
I'm not going to, no.
okay, that gave me a lot of pause.
This is,
I was told that too, so that gave me a lot of pause because of the institutional disruption that would cause. Everyone on that board is like very old hand, you know what I mean? But
I have been in town government for, somewhere about 30 years now. Compared to the other mud balls that have come at me, people going behind my back and filing complaints with the state that I've had to answer to and the rest, this is kind of minor. I'm not going to quit over this.
okay, so let me just ask, so it seems like number one is a non-issue, because you're saying if we fund it,
If Badco wants to, as I
then-
say, I'm respecting Badco as
so
a free
in a
press.
sense, we always have that option.
That's right.
But just let me ask you about number two. So hearings that involve more than the owner and direct abutters who are notified directly will be broadcast at Badco's discretion. So what kind of meeting would that, what's in and what's out? So that's the issues that you notify abutters, that would be the lion's share of the work you do, right?
Not necessarily. If we're having a hearing, basically, we don't have as many as we used to. We changed our policies. But you could have something where someone wants to put their system closer to a foundation than our regulation. Now, that's pretty much them. You have a hearing where someone wants to put their well less than 50 feet from a lot line. Okay, that's no big deal to them. Remember, you cannot put a system within a 100-foot radius of a well. So the closer you put it to the lot line, you eliminate your neighbor's property to be able to be used for a surge system. So that affects them. So in that case, we will notify the abutter. If the abutter says, hey, I got a perfectly good system over here, it's fine by me, I'm happy to help out my neighbor. We just ask for a note in writing, end of it. If neighbor says, nah, geez, I'm a little unhappy about this, okay, we call a hearing. And with little green cards go out, notices and the whole thing. and they come in and state why they have a problem with it, as well as any of the other abutters. If we can get everybody who's going to be affected to sign off in writing, we don't go through the formality of a hearing. Then you have situations where somebody might do something that would affect the whole neighborhood, or more than just the direct abutters, you're going to affect more people. Then you should have a full hearing and offer to broadcast it.
But you're really talking about Title V, right?
Most of it, yes.
Yeah. So Title V, a variance from Title V, does the Board of Health have the right to grant that?
Recently, the state, in their wisdom or laziness, I'm not sure which, has said, yes, the local boards can grant variances to Title V. In the past, we've only been able to grant variances to our own local regulations. Anything for Title V had to go to the state to be approved. Now we just notify them after the fact.
So let me ask you one more question. If there's a problem, with a well or water, how is that handled by the Board of Health? In other words, besides the difference from the septic system, is there discretionary functions that the Board of Health performs? My experience with Title V is that it's more or less at this point very perfunctory. As long as everything's in compliance, there's no discretion. The board is signing off on work that's been done at the site. But if the board is granting variances from Title V, and you could include that in number 2, if you could include where you're making discretionary decisions about Title V, if you could include that in the broadcast, I'd be inclined to, at least to go along with that.
All right, you just want to change number 2, that would be more than owner, direct abutters, or a variance to Title V?
Because my experience with Title V right now is that somebody wants to sell their house, they hire an inspector, he comes in, he digs up the system, at some point, Bill Brookins gets involved, the person who's inspecting the system signs off on the Title V. Unless there's an issue, Bill signs the certificate, right? He's not there looking at every Title V.
No, a Title V inspection is completely different from a well permit or a permit for a sewage system. The Title V is basically part of the state's thrust to privatize as much as possible. So basically, the Title V inspector goes out there and inspects the system. Bill is not there. We are not there. We get a report.
You're relying on that inspector.
Exactly.
Okay.
We are.
So
And
That's the
if-
septic company. It could be the same company
It
that
is.
pumps out your tank,
it is.
flushes it,
Yeah.
cleans it. That's who does.
But
the
there's no
inspection.
discretion. I think what I'm interested in adding to number 2 is where there's discretion by the board. If they're making a variance, if they're allowing a variance to Title V,
All right.
closer to a lot line, closer to a well,
All right.
you know, and having those discussions, I would be inclined, if we could make that change, I would be, at least to start, to adopt that policy and see how we go, knowing that we have, ultimately, we could do it at the next meeting. I mean, because we can fund, if we fund these additional meetings, then it's, cameras are rolling. But I would just like, as a courtesy to the Board of Health, let's see how it goes.
All right, yeah. I mean,
Because it's,
I have no- I have
the
no-
way I see it, if
We
there
give
was,
very few variances to Title V. And I'd be happy to include any variance to Title V. We'll hold a hearing and broadcast,
because
offer to
at
broadcast.
the end of the day, if the most sinister things are happening, it's happening when you have discretion. And I'm not saying that that is occurring at all. But I'm just saying, in terms of citizen concern, they want to make sure that things are compliant, that the wells and the septic systems are compliant with the law. And to the extent the board has the right to change that law, I think we should be seeing that. And just as a starting point, I would be inclined to.
Yeah, I'm happy to make that change. We have to do it very, very seldom. We don't like to, I think Title V is a very good document. I think some of our local regs lack a lot foundation under them, and we may review them in the next year, in which case we'll be advertising for a hearing. And, but Title V is a pretty solid document, and we really have to have a hell of a good argument before anyone gets a variance to Title V.
But it would, and if there was any, if you're allowing, if you're performing a discretionary function, a lot of what you do is really not discretionary. You're signing off on compliant work that's already been done by an inspector or Bill Brookings or whatnot.
Well, I think if you read the minutes, they do have a lot of discretion. So maybe you could talk about where you do have discretion. I think that would be helpful.
All right. We'll do the Title V then.
No, I think that the question Jonathan was asking, I don't want to speak for you, is where else is there discretion on the board? Where else are you making discretionary decisions?
Really isn't. I mean, on our local regs, we have a little bit of discretion here and there. But basically, we still have to, and we can issue a variance on local regs. We very seldom do to Title V. And it's usually some ridiculous thing of, as I say, the system's going to be 11 feet instead of 12 feet from a foundation or something else. It's things that, Title V is pretty detailed as to what we can do and what we can't. It gives us some discretion, yes, but it gives very definite limits as to what our discretion is. Certain situations we move a little bit, not much, not within the confines of Title V.
I'm fine with that addition.
All right, I'll rewrite this to include variances to Title V and get down a copy.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Martha.
Mr. Chairman, Martha Remington. I have a question. I live next to land which might possibly be developed as a 40B, and I want to know if the Board of Health can, I know lots of times developers come right up initially and say, we need a variance for 60,000 gallon gas tanks instead of 20,000. Right off the top, they need, this special permit, this variance. Is the Board of Health, or does a 40B say that things of Board of Health nature, water and septic, can be overlooked like other bylaws can be overlooked by 40B because it's some affordable housing?
40?
I would be in a butter, so I would always be invited, but I'm just thinking the future, the Kane property there by the gas station. If that becomes multi-family housing.
40B has to comply with Title V. It is exempt from our local regulations, but it has to comply with Title V. Sunset Ridge did.
And water supply,
Yes?
wells, distances
Yep.
from every well and every distance
Yes.
abutting and on the property? Thank you.
Do we want Chris to come back with this, or do we want to just?
I'd suggest if you could, I don't know if you want Chris to come back or not, but you need to have the finalized clean copy in front of you to vote on it at the next meeting.
All right, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, I'm fine if you want to add that.
All right, I'll add that.
Reasonable compromise. You're fine with it.
Yeah, subject to review of the language, I guess.
Very well.
All right. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Chris.
Yep. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, next up is town administrator report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, just the update on Minuteman, just a reminder that that the district-wide vote is still September 20th. And there was a meeting, I think I updated you at the last meeting, there was a meeting of all the town clerks at Minuteman a few weeks back where all the logistics were discussed. And from what Pam tells me, it was a very good meeting. So just to keep it in front of everyone, the date of the vote is still September 20th.
And that'll be 12.
I believe 12 to 8. Next update on best practices for capital projects. At the last meeting, the board asked that I go off and speak to some of my colleagues about what their practices are for planning for capital projects, culverts and the like. So I reached out to 3 colleagues that I have quite a bit of respect for, who all have more time in as town administrator / manager than I do, and I've been doing it for 7.5 years now. And I explained what the practices that we follow, which is that for the most part, we've looked to the DPW director who goes off and solicits whatever professional assistance he may need on a given project, and then comes back with an estimate to the town as to what the project should be. And all 3 of them said that's exactly what they do, that they trust their employees to be knowledgeable in these areas, as long as someone has proved to be knowledgeable in those areas. And they do seek whatever assistance they may need, but when their employee comes forward with a recommendation, that's what they do. So the way that we've done it up to now is exactly the way they do it.
So they're going to town meeting with, capital projects without a structural engineer report for, the taxpayers to review.
That's correct.
You discussed that with them?
I did.
Okay.
I outlined the way that we've done it up to now, and they said that's exactly the way they do it. As far as update on comp time for contract employees, I spoke to the same 3 town administrators or managers, one is a manager, and happened to be in a meeting with an additional colleague, so I actually spoke to 4 people about that. And it was split 2-2 on how they handle it. 2 of them say that it's left at the discretion of the town administrator, that if they see a department head, during a busy time, who may be putting in a lot of additional hours, and the town administrator or manager would say, you've put in a lot of time, why don't you take Monday off, or come in late, or leave early Friday. So it's a discretionary policy. The other 2, one has a written policy, one does not, but they still follow the same practice, which is they consider their contract employees to be exempt employees, which we are. And if you're putting in hours, you're putting in hours, and you don't get comp time for it. So that basically the attitude was, what you're signing up for when you take the job, and they don't do comp time. So two towns do comp time at the discretion of the administrator, and 2 towns do not do comp time at all. So any questions on either one of those, I'd be happy to answer. And then finally, back in June, I believe it was, we were asked, the board asked to extend an invitation to DOT to come to a meeting. It was June, because I think we were hoping either July or August that they would come. And we got a response back from Mr. Lorian, saying that while he would be happy to have a conversation or meeting about the issues raised in the letter that was sent with town staff, he would suggest that the conversation not be in the public forum. He said this would allow the conversation to be more productive and put the town in position to articulate our approach to addressing concerns with residents, rather than having the information come from a state official. So he said that he would be happy to participate in a working meeting with town staff and or a selectman, as we did before, but he didn't think it would be productive to come to a public meeting to have that conversation.
And it's a district concern too?
Yes, the concern was explained in the letter about the safety in the area. And
didn't it come up that we were going to try and get him to come to a tri-town meeting?
I don't know that we set a tri-town meeting. I believe we set a selectmen's meeting.
Okay.
And So he said he would be happy to work with us in a working session, but not, he didn't think it would be productive to do it at a public meeting.
So he's declined essentially.
He declined to attend the public meeting, yes. So it's a matter of, how we want to proceed from here, how the board wants to proceed from here.
But, please, I could be wrong, but I thought at the last Tri-Town was in Stowe,
Yes,
and I thought this came up at the Stowe Tri-Town.
it did.
And I thought we were talking about a meeting with him at Neshoba in the auditorium and inviting the family,
Yes, that's what it would be a selectmen's meeting. I assumed a selectmen's meeting, but yes, it would be held at it would be held at Neshoba.
and it would
Because
be
we
a
expect-
Tri-Town selectmen's meeting, or,
Well, it would be, the people from the 3 towns would be invited, it wasn't specifically a tri-town.
okay,
But yes, that, it would be a meeting conducted at Neshoba
Neshoba,
that we would make Lancaster and Stowe aware of.
okay.
And that could still be a private meeting.
I think we should put that back. I mean, he should be coming to that meeting. That's a dangerous situation. I think we should put that on the next Tri-Town agenda anyway.
Okay, then we can work to schedule such a meeting and invite him to attend.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a little less people anyway.
Mhm. Do you have
I mean,
a,
I'd be open to have a working meeting to discuss, discuss the 117 report and discuss, the intersections and this, focus, with a focus on the high school Green Road intersection issue.
does the board have a feeling for what the time frame would be? Would you like to see us try and schedule that meeting?
I mean, that's kind of what we've done already, but I'd do it again. I don't mind going again.
But just, since you're meeting with him, I think the legislature has given cities and towns more power to change speed limits in dense areas. It would be good to get, a clearer sense of that legislation, maybe.
No, that was was that part of the governor's modernization legislation, I believe it was?
Maybe Mary can tell us about.
Mary Chumo, Corn Road. That's only for thickly settled areas, so it would only be town center. I have another question. If there is a working session with Barry or somebody from SDOT, could a representative from Public Ways attend as well?
I would certainly invite someone from public works.
So if you let us know when that's going to happen, thank you.
Are you talking about a private meeting or public meeting?
Exactly. It's very unclear what on the one hand, you just said that Barry declined to come to a public meeting. Now you're talking about a tri-town meeting or some sort of meeting for the public at Neshoba for all 3 towns that you invite him to, but he just declined coming to a public meeting. If you could please explain it again, because I didn't get it.
I'll let the chair do that. I don't want to speak for the selectmen.
It would be a working session, it would not be a televised meeting, it would not be a meeting that would be publicized and put on the schedule.
But it would be a meeting involving the selectmen, therefore it'd be a public meeting.
If there were 2 selectmen there, then
If there was a
we'd
quorum,
have to
yes.
post it.
Yes, it would have to be posted if there were 2 or more selectmen.
But it would not be a meeting that would be advertised, it would not be a meeting that would be televised.
I went the first time that posted.
You would want residents there, but not advertised.
Well,
That's just a question.
well, we want it to be a working meeting and not necessarily get the input of what I think the main goal is to better understand what we can and cannot do relative to those areas. Because since the state has effectively walked away from taking ownership of the road last year because of a variety of things, including the lawsuit, the town is now responsible for dealing with these issues. forget about whether or not we get tip grants or any other kind of grant to do that at some point down the road. But regardless, the fact that we still own the road, we have to get buy-in from the state as to what we might want to do with the road. And Mary's point, the recent legislation, she indicates is thickly settled. So it's not automatic that we have the ability to change the speed limit, and we need to understand.
Well, depending on what we're looking to do, I mean, because we did review, actually, we reviewed the 117 report in its entirety when you and I met with Barry.
Right.
Depending on what we're looking to do, sometimes it's not that we need the state's buy-in as much as we need to follow the same guidelines that the state would need to follow if they were doing it, or not guidelines, but.
Correct.
Now, they can make suggestions, like they made suggestions for calming techniques and that type of thing, but Barry did say during the conversation that, actually he had with Linda when he called back, was he referenced us to the exact same document that he reviewed with you and I relative to the criteria for lowering speed limits and the hurdles that need to be overcome in order to be able to do that. So he, realizing that one of the goals that we have is lowering the speed limit down there, he went right back to that document and re-referenced it.
Mr. Chairman, will the town have to wait another year or more before a crosswalk can be painted onto the road surface at the school across from the police department?
There are certain guidelines from the state of what you can and cannot do as far as a crosswalk.
We cannot put a crosswalk.
Will it
Right
be
now-
more than a year to do
Right
that?
now, we are not able to do that because the regulations from the state will not allow us to do that. And I think I'm paraphrasing, but a crosswalk needs to go from one area to another where there are sidewalks, and there aren't.
There aren't any sidewalks.
So, but there's other criteria that have to be followed, and we can't right at the moment meet that criteria from the state. So it's not a matter of whether we wait or not, it's just that it cannot be done, given where the school is. The same goes for I believe it is speed limits and the like in terms of lowering.
That is the school's law. Can't the speed limit be down?
It can be. He laid out what we need to do. We need to put in traffic calming measures. He told us what they were. We need to heavily police the area. And as soon as our speed drops due to these traffic calming, heavier enforcement, then they will come out and remeasure. If the speed has dropped, they'll drop the posted speed limit. So it's already to some extent within our power, and
That's exactly correct.
Correct, but we may not be able to drop it to the way we want to drop it. There's a formula, so it may go down somewhat, but not to the extent.
the power to drop it is within our grasp right now.
And I think we do have the power to redesign that intersection, Green Road 117.
We have the power to redesign the intersection, we just make sure we adhere to whatever the appropriate standards are.
That's right. And we also have to pay for it.
And it's a part-time.
One last thing under my report, Mr. Chairman, just a reminder to all that Monday night at 5 p.m. at the Public Safety Building will be the pinning ceremony for Chief Nelson.
So if you can come, please attend. Anything else?
Unless the board has any questions for me, that's all I have for this evening.
All right, now we'll step up with the Board of Selectmen business
I
and.
do have one question. So I believe we got an email about a well. About a well that had, that person's well that had gone down and there was indicia because of the drought.
Yes. We did receive that email, and I plan on meeting with Bill Brookins tomorrow morning. I see that as a Board of Health issue.
Enormous issue. I mean, potentially, a person reported in to, it wasn't to me, I don't know.
I received the email from Pat Bensettler, and she wanted to know where it should be directed, and I asked her to direct it towards Linda because Jenny is out this week, so Linda's covered.
The person's well level had dropped and that the purity of the water had eroded because of the drought.
Mhm.
And the person was inquiring about how are we responding
That's right.
to the drought, because it's impacted her well personally. So-
So, and Bill has his hours tomorrow morning, I'll be meeting with him then.
Sure. Yes, Brad?
A well is a personal item. This person is sending you an email and you're looking to get involved in a personal issue that is their responsibility to deal with.
And it isn't their responsibility. That's
Their individual
the
well.
town, yes, there's regulations that they're, absolutely. And we're all drawing off the same aquifer. It's all drawn off the same water pool.
I mean, it's definitely worth discussing just as a canary in the coal mine situation. You know,
Maybe start with
the-
digging a deeper well.
Yeah, but it's still worth knowing that the first well has dried out or is close to drying out. And that should be something everybody should know about.
Well, I don't understand why the selectmen have not made a statement about the drought and having people be more cautious with the amount of water they're using.
So digging a well, I think the last estimate I got is $8,000. So it's a big deal. So we have somebody, I don't know what their financial situation is, and their well's running dry, and that's pretty scary.
But we paid the Neshoba Board of Health to monitor exactly this.
I'll give you guys a call when I need to resize my house. 'Cause
I don't see the connection.
That's an expensive bill.
I don't see the connection at all. Show me a regulation that governs your siding on your house. I will show you one that governs your water supply.
All right, once I have a response from Bill, I'll get it out.
Yeah, we shouldn't take any more time up on this matter now because it's not on the agenda, but we can add it to another agenda. Yes.
The state, I received an email today at 2 o'clock. The state is having a conference call about the drought in the whole state of Massachusetts. If you'd like, I can forward that link to Don, you can forward it to the selectmen. If you choose, you can join that conference call at 2 tomorrow.
Sure.
I'm just thinking, based on that question,
Yep,
to help
that's fine.
guide you guys a little bit.
All right. All right, I had a request. We'll take the very last Board of Selectmen piece of business and we'll bring it to the top, so.
Thank you. That's just a 2-minute change to your agenda.
Yeah. So let's go first.
I'm Frank Laskin. I'm a volunteer at the Bolton TV station. I'm also the treasurer of the Bolton TV station. And I come here every quarter to make a request for the Comcast quarterly franchise fees that we use to operate the TV station. This quarter, the amount is $28,448.15. And this quantity of money roughly covers our operation costs for the next 3 months. So maybe release the money to the Bolton TV station.
And this is a similar amount that you came last week. It's fine with me. Someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to release the 28,448.15 to Bolton Access.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. One thing before you go, Frank, I've heard from a number of people that we've had a couple of meetings in this room,
Yeah.
that the sound quality is a little difficult for them to hear now I don't know whether they're watching it directly on TV or they're watching it from, the TV streams, town hall streams. But if you could check into that, they have indicated that it is difficult to hear some of the individuals.
I will. The sound is really more important than video for our viewers. So that is a real key priority for us. And I know we have adjusted the mics around
Okay.
and we'll continue to improve the audio on this.
Yeah, I mean, I received one of those emails, and I think it was the audience questions were very hard to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably don't have mics back there. With the mic, using the private microphones you have.
They were proposing having a standing mic that people can come up to ask questions.
That's one solution.
Yeah,
So,
that's something to think about.
all right, I'll take that to the next meeting. We're gonna have a meeting probably in a month, so
Okay.
we'll address it.
Okay.
I'll address it even sooner.
Okay.
Talk to Ken about it.
All right, thanks. Thanks
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Have a nice evening. All right, before we get into the other business, every once in a while I do a couple of public service announcements. I've been remiss in doing that. First is, at the transfer station, as you're driving up, there's a little red shed to your right. That is the Boy Scout shed where they keep the collection of bottles and cans. The collection of the bottles and cans that have deposits are the primary source of income and revenue for the Boy Scouts in the town of Bolton to support their programs. When I go up to the transfer station, I see lots of soda and beer bottles going into the glass and aluminum containers. If you folks could just separate them out and leave them at the little red shack there, it would be greatly appreciated for the Boy Scouts in the town of Bolton. As a corollary to that, and I should have said this a lot sooner during the summer, but we would appreciate it if you would rinse out your bottles and cans before you bring them up to the transfer station, especially in the summer. It's a great haven for insects, especially bees and wasps. So if you could just rinse out your bottles and cans before you bring them up, that would also be greatly appreciated. Lastly is that the folks at the DPW station have asked me to let you know that grocery bags that you get, say, at Market Basket and the like, the recycling company that we use does not take those, so they have to pull them out. However, at most major chains, grocery stores, Target and the like, they will collect those at the entrances, so if you can just hold on to those.
Plastic bags?
Plastic bags. If any type of plastic bag, whether it be from the grocery store, Target, Lowe's, or whatever, if you hold on to those, they pretty much take any of them at the entrances to those stores, so we would appreciate if you do that as well.
And wheat will take them as well.
Meat? Okay.
Yes, to repackage food to distribute to people.
Okay.
And where's that drop off, the wheat drop off?
In Clinton.
Okay, so that the wheat office in Clinton, but, as I said, any grocery store or major chain will do that. One last thing, that's something I read in the Sunday Boston Globe that you should be aware of, and whether you're for or against, you might want to reach out to your local state rep. Due to one individual who moved up here from Washington, D.C., who managed to pester a local official in Quincy, who managed to pester the governor, there is a committee that's been formed to possibly put the state of Massachusetts on Atlantic Standard Time, because they don't want the flip-flopping between daylight savings time and the other time zone, because the individual wants more daylight in either the evening or the day. So for approximately 6 months of the year, we would be either 1 hour ahead or 1 hour behind the rest of the entire eastern seaboard. So if you're not happy with that, you might want to reach out to your local state rep. I just thought I would mention that. All right, so we're done with the public service announcements. The next is an update on the Wilder Road culvert. Good evening, Harold. How's everyone tonight?
I believe you've got the engineer's reports. You've got your civil engineer's report and the So what's the wish of the board?
So
So I think in our packets, we have the engineer's proposal for the portico town hall. And then,
We're talking about the well
okay, I don't see that.
Who was that? Who was the engineer?
It's Bayside, it came out in an email, I think,
An email,
Monday or
sorry.
Tuesday.
Mhm.
I don't want to cut Mr. Chairman off, I do have questions about
I
it.
have a copy of it here if anybody needs to reference it.
I believe the recommendation was to replacement of the structure.
That's correct.
That's,
And they looked at some other options that they mentioned.
So I took the opportunity to call Bayside Engineering, and one question that has come up is on the second page. The last paragraph. So excavation, since a concrete box culvert will last many times the multiple of corrugated metal lifespan, a concrete box is the best option. But I just did some investigation myself. There are also circular concrete pipes that, my understanding, the whole, not only the cost of the box culvert, but the cost of installing the box culvert is what escalates the repair.
You're doing excavation.
Right, but the cost of a box culvert, my understanding, is around 10 times the size of the circular,
10 times the size
10 times the cost
of a concrete pipe, RCP.
of a concrete pipe. So for 40 feet of circular pipe, it's around, for 40 feet of the circular pipe, it's $1,900. That's a 36 inch. And then for 40 feet of the 42 inch is $2,400. And you're looking at about 10 times that with a box.
You've also, what are you gonna do with the head walls?
Well, the head walls,
If you can't push this pipe, we're gonna have to excavate. We're excavating. So what you're proposing would be to take pipes and put pipes in there. You would, if it's 40 feet we need, you're gonna have to still have two head walls,
right,
okay?
right.
I looked into that, and I looked into, say, okay, instead of doing 40 feet, we're gonna do 60 feet, because we have it. So I'm gonna go way out, and then I'm gonna bring riprap in and riprap it, okay? So I can tie that in that way. Is it possible? Yes. At the end of the day, am I gonna save anything by doing it? I don't believe so. Because a box versus pipe, they're pretty comparable. But when, also in this is, you're talking those big cement head walls, the whole things.
That's right.
Now, if you put pipe in there, I still need the head walls.
Right.
So,
But
I have to precast, I have precast and have it for pipe. The box per se, it's viable because it's cost comparable. You've got to also add your head wall in, your two head walls.
Well, my understanding of installing the box culvert is it's much more expensive. The excavation is greater, the equipment that's needed is greater, and you achieve the same thing, especially in this case where you're not talking about I mean, I would imagine that's bone dry at this point.
At this point here, it's bone dry. When I say equipment, no, the equipment would be the same, an excavator can set the box. So that part is really the same. The setting the box is the same as setting the pipe. The pipe is in 5-foot sections, I believe. They're in 5-foot sections. The box is much bigger and could be set in with an excavator. So the same equipment's going to be there. The difference between the two is, well, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But you've still got to put your head walls.
Yes.
So we still got to bring those big head walls in. And by the time I'm through in the casting of that, unless we do it in place, which I wouldn't be for, because the precast is much quicker and faster for us to do it, I don't believe you're going to see that much difference in your cost. I understand where you're going with the pipe. And there's something.
Because he does say a pipe, he does talk about a corrugated metal pipe, but he says kind of goes against that because the lifespan's only 10 to 30 years, whereas the concrete box has a lifespan of 50 to 75.
Correct.
But my understanding, I talked to Situate Precast, and they
Oh,
said,
yeah.
they said that the circular pipe has the same
Oh, it does.
lifespan as the box culvert.
Correct, absolutely.
So then it comes down to if you use the circular pipe versus the box culvert, at the end of the day, have you saved money? And the feeling, my understanding is once you go to a box culvert, it's a much more expensive expense.
There is some more expense to it, the ability, it's more of a standard to do it, but you can do it with the pipe. You could do it with the pipe, and if CSI would cast, so you could put you could put the precast pipe in. Is it possible? Yeah.
So I guess just from my interest, I would like to see bids on, I understand the part about the corrugated metal, it sounds like that out, but if we had a comparison cost between,
The pipe, RCP
pipe
versus the box.
box.
That's doable. And we'll just have to, we'll just do it, I don't think that would mean a conservation, I'm jumping ahead, conservation change. I think it'd be a drawing change. And to just put that out and see what the difference in the prices are. It's something we did consider, and we also considered going much further with the pipe and rip-wrapping it, so we would not have the head walls. And when it came down to it, the head walls were...
Just so that, I mean, consistent with our discussion at the last meeting, so that we could see the cheapest fix, which I actually called to talk to Mr. Boucher, but he was on vacation. And so,
Boucher Construction?
no, Bayside Engineering, the engineer, the guy's name is
Oh.
Boucher, and he was out. But I talked to somebody else, and they answered the best they could. But if we could have, their opinion about least cost remedy all the way to, which it sounds like it's only, because
We should be able to do that with a simple phone call, to be honest with you. We'll just take the box that we have and ask how much a linear foot cost of a box. Okay, now give me a linear foot cost of, let's say, a 36-inch pipe.
right.
And what's that gonna cost us? And then how much to tie that into two head walls?
From what I can dig up, my understanding is the box culvert's significantly more expensive, and the process of setting it significantly more expensive.
That isn't, because both have gotta be set level, and they both gotta be set practically the same way. So that part's not gonna differ much. I think we are gonna see any difference would be on the linear, on the price of the pipe versus the box. The box is much larger, longer, so when you set the box in, you just have one joint. We're gonna have several joints, but that can be handled. It's handled every day of the week. But so, if that's what you would like to see, yeah, we can do
Well,
that.
I'm just one guy, but one of the voters.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
I am interested to see that cost comparison.
Yeah, I'll call the same pipe company you call, and I'll say, this is the company, because we deal with them. And I'll say, this is what the box is, this is my box, culvert. What's the cost per foot of this, and what's the cost of my pipe? And then I want my pipe to go into the head wall that matches this, and I'll send them the print.
And then the process also of installing both of those, is there a difference?
That, they wouldn't tell you that.
No, they won't, but
But there you're not talking much difference.
We could bid it both ways.
Oh, no, you wouldn't want to bid it both ways, because if you know what the box is, or what the thing is, they'll do the other. These people that do this all the time, it's really no difference to me.
and I would like to see it bid both ways.
All right, you
The
would like the
circular
box
pipe
and the box.
And the box.
That's two bid documents to go out. Would it be better if you had a cost estimate from the engineers to give you the difference in it? Would that make you feel better? Because if we bid, contractors, when they bid it, usually it isn't that option. You either tell them you want a box or you want the pipe.
I mean, you should be able to tell yourself,
should be able-
once you know the footage, how much a foot it costs, you can figure that out yourself, what it's gonna be. And as far as setting it, it's not gonna be, it's 40 feet is nothing. Really is.
But we're also, the box culvert is much larger, isn't it, than the?
We'd have to match the volume to it. That we would not match. So if it's a 36, it's a 36, or it's whatever it is, we'd match it.
And I don't know what the correct.
I don't have it in front of me to figure it out.
I took the very rough conversation that I had with Bayside, and
What do you say, a 36?
he said a 36 inch or a 42 inch, but he was kind of shooting from the hip.
Yeah.
And what would the box,
42 is a big pipe.
how wide would the box culvert be?
I don't have the print in front of me, I didn't bring it. All I need is that measurements to tell you which one is the match volume. Because that's all we're talking about, is matching volume.
In terms of excavating, it's like a V, so if you have a 36-inch pipe at the bottom, it's going to be a smaller V than if it's, 8 feet or a 20-foot box.
Unluckily, no, because those banks, the excavation has to be sloped so that it's safe to be in there. And I would presume whoever does it is not going to use a trench box. So they're going to have to, there's a formula how much you're going to open the cut up. So, and believe me, this is minor. We're talking very minor things. Because they put stone down, and if I was doing it, I'd put down paper and set it on a slide and everything together. But it's not really that big a deal. But we can get those two figures. I think you can get a good idea just knowing the linear feet, or what it costs a linear foot. And believe me, the excavation and construction will be minimal. They'll probably bid both of them the same. Same, that excavator will be setting the pipe in, the excavator will set the box in. All that's the same.
As long as I can
Yeah,
see it.
we can make some phone calls and get that.
Okay, so would that be, we'd report back at the next selectmen's meeting, and then the board would make a decision at that point as to how to proceed, or how do you want to do that?
Yeah, I sometimes do this on projects, you ask for preliminary quotes, just to get a sense of where you are in the budget, and then you scale back.
Okay.
So it's asking for 2 preliminary quotes for these 2 different systems.
That will be fairly easy for us to do.
And we can report that back on September 8th.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there-
Yes, Martha?
Just a question from the Historical Commission, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask Director Brown if the head walls that are going to retain the historic character of the culvert, the huge rocks,
Where we excavate, no. Outside of the excavation,
just
yes.
aesthetically from either side, if you were low down where the brook was.
You would see head wing walls, you would see wing walls set in.
Natural stone that you
No, then that would tie into your natural stone.
Oh, okay, fine.
You will have the cement structure, and then on either side, you have your natural stone. We don't intend to.
There won't be any, the stone will all be used somehow.
No,
Thank you.
it won't.
No.
The stone wall will be gone.
Some of it, there'll still be a lot there.
Right. It's a huge.
In that section.
Yes.
They'll be
Yeah.
gone, but you'll still have the effect of it, the rest of it there.
Are there plans, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Director Brown, can the town use those stones somewhere else to keep them, or will they be taken off by the?
No. All of that is ours. I don't have that hauled off. That's ours.
Thank you,
And if we can use it on site again, we will use it,
thank you.
because we did on Sampson. That's it. Is it?
There's another comment.
I'll take one more question. Yes?
Bob Russell, Indian Welder Road. Mr. Hall was kind enough to send Bayside to the report. In looking at it, I'm a little bit confused in that I went on their website. They've been around a long time. They were founded in 1967. So I think it's safe to say we're talking about a very experienced company. They give us basically 2 options. Multiple corrugated quote metal pipes lifespan of 10 or 30 years, you get corrugated pipe that far exceeds that, it's just a different spec, or a concrete box. They make no mention of RCP pipe, HDPE pipe, and it's my understanding today, based on my past experience, that typically those are the two products that typically vie with steel pipe, corrugated steel. So I'm just curious as to why these guys present this report and leave these two key components out of it. Second question, you mentioned the need for a head wall. I mean, head walls are typically very important when you're dealing with tidal situations, heavy stream confluences. We're talking about a little brook, if you will, that doesn't even run year-round. I don't understand why we just couldn't have a pick RCP, an RCP pipe with the appropriate end treatment, with some riprap on the end of it. Construction, you're going to need a much smaller machine to do that than you are to put in a box. I'm confused.
You're holding back about 10 to 15 foot high, so is that right?
10 foot.
Wall. We're holding that dirt back and we're holding this road up. And that's why you need those cement, the two walls on either side. As you have now, the stone that is doing that. The stone that runs that whole length, that's holding that wall, that road on either side. If I go and excavate, I need something to hold that road. On either side, I need that. So the rocks just won't wash away. You need that head wall, and that makes a support for your road. That's why you need those walls. Could you do something completely different and go, as I said, go way out with pipe and bring back riprap on either side and do it that way? Yeah, you could. But the precast head wall, as Sampson has, and many other culverts I put in, you need that to hold your road. You don't need it for you're not looking at so much for the rest of the water, it's to support your road, it's on top of it. Right now, you have support with the stone walls.
People should be reminded that this report was requested by the Selectmen to spend $1,800 to basically get the same answer we had before, which was to replace the culvert. Was the main purpose of this particular report, and whether or not a repair could be effective. So,
Well, I have to quibble a little bit with that because the engineer who did it was not there today. And one of the things that I was gonna ask him, and the man who I talked to, I was gonna also ask, what's the least we could do, in his opinion? Could we do something else? But, you know.
I don't see what. If I could, I'd done it. If I could have done anything else, I did. The last thing I told you before I wanted to do was this. The last thing I want to do is do that. If I can do an easier way out, I'd have taken it.
But you do have all that water coming out of the hill, and sure, it may be dry now, but I tell you, during some of the hurricanes, those roads all get flooded.
all right, so you're going to come back.
I'm coming back with an RCP. And I will look at one other pipe that's possible in that, an ABS, but as far as steel corrugated, I won't put another steel corrugated anywhere. The steel, I'm wondering, I know, of 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's not the steel we have today. Unluckily. Is that it? No.
No, it's not. Next up is the review of the proposal for structural engineering portico at the town hall.
So I believe you have in your package the quote from Mr. Lala, who came out and looked at the portico, and with Harold externally, I went up into the attic and looked at what was up there. Also have the quote from the architect who worked with Harold. Previously, we gave the verbal report, but the request was to get a written report, and so you do have the quote for that, but the work has not commenced yet.
I just say, the architect, I think we need a structural engineer to look at it. Architect is gonna come later in the process. I do wanna propose that we invite, the design review board to, look at Mr. Lala's proposal. There are kind of different options in there. But I'd like to propose that they look at this, and come back with the options that we might go ahead with, they would propose, and, I would like the design review board to be involved in this project from start to finish. It's an issue of architecture and aesthetics, and I think it's important to have their guidance on this project.
If I could also interject, I think local historic should be involved. I've had Martha's been down, and we've had several members of that community that I've met with. So I think they should be, because I think no matter what, that has to go to, it's under restrictions. But I think our local historic should be very much involved to see which way we want to go, and if we want to replace or try to repair or what.
That was one thing I did, I don't know, I could have missed it, but in that contract, it didn't seem to focus on a repair or at all.
In Mr. Lawler's?
Yeah, I could have missed it, so
He used the word repair.
it seemed he was strictly focused on,
Because we made it clear, Harold and I both made it clear to him that we were interested in repair and replace options.
So, Mr. Lala worked on the Delta Financial Barn. That's where I met him on the planning board.
What a nice job.
And that was a tough job because they kept all 3 floors open, so they had to figure out fire suppression while keeping the huge structure open.
In fact, I certainly would not put words in his mouth, but most of the conversation, most would be strong, majority of the conversation that we had, as he was thinking out loud, he was trying to find ways to repair it rather than replace it. It was very clear that he was looking for ways to do that.
but he says my services at the bottom of page 1 would not include the following, so all the structural stuff. I thought it was, we're making a decision whether to repair or replace, or are we?
No, he would come back with his recommendation.
Okay.
Architect would give you.
As long as it says that.
I will reaffirm that with him, but as I said, I made that quite clear to him, and I could tell, believe me, I'm not an engineer, but I could tell just from the questions he was asking and some of the preliminary ideas he had, I could see he was really working towards trying to see a way if it could be repaired, because he said, it's going to cost you a lot more to replace this than it is to repair. And he did say, and in that vein, he said, if the cost of repair is more than 50% of what it would cost to replace, then you should replace. So we were definitely having that conversation.
Also got to look at, our repairs going to last me how long? That's the big thing I want to know. How long that repair is going to last, cost. How long it's going to last, divided by the cost. Now, how long is a full replacement going to have? Can I gain twice as much out of a replacement of that than I can a repair? Because the worst thing we want to do is repair and find out 15 years later, now we got to replace. Now we're looking at, 3 times the cost than doing it that one time. And that, even on the codas, that's what you got to weigh out all the time.
I agree.
I think there is a big difference though. There's historic fabric there, and you don't want to just throw the whole thing out. When you're dealing with historic structures, it is about preserving the fabric that is intact and replacing the pieces that are completely rotten. So it's a much more delicate process than a culvert, I think.
I think that's why we should hire someone to look at it so we know. we have a chance to look into this.
So if the board votes to direct me to do so, I will follow up with Mr. Lala, and I can sign the contract on the board's behalf, and we can get them started.
So we need a motion?
Please.
So I'll make a motion to, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, just
Martha.
one quick question. Is the Historical Commission's assumption that the new portico, whether repaired or replaced, would be of the same scale and effect as it is in its current situation?
Martha?
It needs a new pedestal and other things, but
That's what they've got to work
we
through.
wouldn't want just some facade that's going to take the place of.
No, I think the intent is whatever is done, at the end of the day, it's going to look the same.
Thank you.
You'll be there, Martha.
Thank you.
So I would make a motion to authorize Don Lowe to request the changes of Mr. Lala that were discussed today, including being certain that it's a repair or replace analysis, and to execute the agreement on behalf of the board.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay now?
No, not yet.
The next one is to discuss both repair and replacement proposals are requested for all currently planned and future projects.
So effectively, what does the board want to see us pursue for a policy going forward? I think we've established where we are now for these projects, but going forward, what would the approach, what would the preferred approach of the board be?
So we're talking about capital projects that go to town meeting for a vote.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's important for, projects of this scale in terms of, money and construction that we are having a document. It's not a verbal, but we have a document that can be published and reviewed by town citizens before town meeting, so they have, and there's somebody that they can call, question, about the report. So I think it's important that we follow the model that we've started on of having structural engineers or some type of report related to the scale and specifics of the project.
Could I ask for one clarification? When you said someone they could call, we wouldn't want 30 different citizens calling the same engineering firm and eating up a lot of the time. We would need a focal point.
Well, these reports need to be public, and I doubt it's going to be 30 people, but if somebody like the abutter on Wilder Road wants to call and check, that's transparent, accountable, and...
I think the report should all be public. I'm just cautioning whoever the engineering firm is, they may not respond to multiple calls once they start coming in. But that's on them, that's
Yeah.
not on us.
Is there a way you could, don't put the engineering firm's name on the thing and direct it to you? Like if someone has to call.
So if you start calling engineers, you call a lawyer every time you do that.
Let's not do that.
To you.
If their time is money,
Oh, absolutely.
so you can't
We
find
can see
out.
how it goes.
We can see how it goes, exactly.
Well, I think the notion that we're going to have citizens be able to call Bayside Engineering to discuss these projects that is ludicrous. I think, if you two gentlemen are insisting that we have repair and replace options, then we'll have repair and replace options. But then we should decide as a group which is the option the town should go forward with. And that's the option that we present to the town.
Like which
We
one's gonna be
shouldn't
the-
be presenting articles on town meeting floor that says you can repair or you can replace. Because then you're gonna have umpteen people with their own opinions, and I think that's why they elect us. So if we wanna have a repair and replace option, then we get those, and then we discuss as a group with DPW, whoever the particular town, expert is, and then we decide which proposal we want to go with, and that's the one we present to the town. but we don't give the town an option independently to decide whether we're going to replace something or repair. We should be making that decision based upon the information and the facts that we get, and that's the proposal that we present to the tenants.
I agree.
On roads, on the horizontal, usually on all roads are the dominion of civil engineers. So the culverts, bridges still use structural, but culverts and so on usually, and we have to hire a civil engineer to do the drawings and everything that is presented. Usually there is, but now what you're saying is we're going to hire a civil engineer to do the work that needs to be done in the wetlands delineation and so on, to go before our boards, especially conservation. But we've also got to hire a structural engineer to give a report on the same thing that the civil engineers do. Am I correct there?
No.
Well, the civil engineer has to come in on it anyway. Civil engineers don't design these things. Structurals don't, civils do.
So it'd be, the professional that's tailored to the project.
We had that with Ducharme and Dillis. Greg Roy, that is his expertise.
He's a structural engineer
No,
for the culvert?
he's a civil. You've got to have the civil do that first part.
Okay.
The structural looks at the structure itself. That's it, nothing else in that. And does not do the report. Other than that, we would have to hire a firm. We would have to go to a larger firm, cost us more money, like Bayside Engineering, and have them do their civil engineering and their structural engineering all at the same time.
I mean, I'm fine with whoever the licensed professional is.
Which one, a civil engineer or a structural engineer?
Well, if the civil engineer is the one that's designing all the work, drafting all the papers, and...
But that's what we had on Wilder Road.
I take a little issue with that. I mean, that first report didn't say anything about the structure at all. It didn't, and I called up Ducharme and Dillis, I don't know if you were, but they said that they were hired only about the soils. So when the culvert was replaced, that they identified that soil. That was the Wednesday before the meeting. But in between the time that I called and the meeting, you had procured another report from Ducharme and Dillis.
Yes, I told them to go up there and look at that structure, because they designed the structure to replace what was there. So why he can, they designed...
I had asked about that.
Oh, I've got drawings that show that...
I was looking for a document, and I was told that it was an imminent failure, and I talked to Ducharme and Dillis, and he said I had nothing to do with this, with analyzing the structure. That's what I was told. The second report from Ducharme and Dillis, when I called it around 1 o'clock the day before the Selectmen's meeting, did not exist. That was created that afternoon, but in any event, it didn't have the information that the Bayside does anyway. But maybe they could have gone out and gotten it. I don't know.
I think Mr. Brown said that the civil engineer deals with the design and structure. They're not looking at the structural piece. But Ducharme and Dillis has designed what was going to be replaced.
That's correct.
Okay, so they've done the
So
design.
there is a design already of a box culvert?
It's all the drawings, yes.
I was unaware of that.
Oh, no,
We have to have them,
with the civil engineer's stamp on it.
I was unaware of that.
I have that hanging down, no. That's what went to conservation. That's what confuses. We had a civil engineer look at this and design.
I did ask about it.
Not like if you...
I think I might have an email.
But, no, I have...
I guess it doesn't matter at this point, but...
So it wouldn't matter if it's a civil or a structural on the culverts? Or do you want both?
They did Ducharme and Dillis did a design. We asked the structural engineer to inspect the condition.
If you want both, then we get both. I just want to know which one we're going to go here.
I mean, both sounds like more money.
Oh, I would imagine.
Well,
to be clear, I was not aware. I was on the phone with,
Never mind that. I'm looking for going forward. You want both, we'll supply both. Whatever
And I know that there was a man at Ducharme Dillis told me that they were not involved in structural analysis of the Wilder Road culvert. That's what was told to me.
Yeah.
They said that they were hired for soil analysis, and that they couldn't help me with whether or not it was an imminent failure, or anything else. So this is it.
They're the ones that went up and looked at it and designed it, and that's the drawings I have. and
We
that's what-
designed the new system for the box culvert, and that's what we were questioning, so
And we have the.
we can think about that.
Yeah, just do what the board wants.
I mean, that particular, the go-forward piece doesn't necessarily have to be resolved tonight, but
Okay.
but before we start working on new major projects, we will need direction from the board on that.
And I just have a question about budget with this, only because if we have to do the engineering before the article,
We have to do that.
okay.
We have, that's always way. That's always. Okay?
All right, well, I just want to summarize. I mean, you asked Mr. Lowe to go out and ask about what the best practices or practices other towns do in terms of coming to the conclusion that we need to either repair or replace something. And he reported back that what other towns do is exactly what we've been doing. So what, in this particular situation, you know, Mr. Lowe and others reviewed the situation and determined that there needed to be a replacement. Engineering drawings were done for a box culvert replacement for that culvert on Wilder Road. Subsequent to that, then you two gentlemen wanted to have a structural engineer go and review that to see whether or not the culvert needed to be repaired or replaced. So we now have gotten a report from the structural engineer saying that the culvert needs to be replaced. So we're kind of sort of in the same spot. The only thing we've done is we've spent more money.
And I would disagree. First of all, I already said that I called over there to ask what, we need a range of options. That's what our discussion was last time. What is their opinion on doing nothing, on filling in the bump in the road, so to speak? We got the corrugated steel, but they didn't mention the circular concrete pipe. So that was my call today to follow up on that, and he's not there. So I don't think it can be presented that this was a waste of time. It wasn't.
I didn't say it was a waste of time. All I'm saying is we spent another $1,800 to get to the conclusion that Bayside recommends replacement of the structure. So we're back to where we were. All we've done is spend more money. Not necessarily how it's going to be implemented, but it needs to be done.
I would disagree.
Well, I would just say, the issue I have with that report is, we had a site meeting and we were very clear that we wanted different options. I talked to Greg, I said I want creative ideas, and, so I'm a little bit disappointed in terms of the communication and, how that was interpreted going forward. So I don't feel like I got the report I was expecting or looking for, and that's a management issue, and, that's really between the town administrator and the DPW director.
And what was asked for was repair and replacement options, and in this case, Bayside said they did not recommend a replacement option, that it needed to be, a repair option, that it needed to be replaced, so it was communicated to Bayside, and that was how they responded. So there was no communication issue.
I know, but so Tom's come up with a different type of repair,
It's really
It could be less.
No, it's not a different type. It's a different material for replacement.
It's actually the same material, but in a different configuration.
So we had to hire, for a box culvert, we had to hire and have drawings made for the box
We do
culvert.
have, yes.
And pay for that.
Yes, we do.
And the pipe culvert, you wouldn't have to do that, you just buy the pipe.
No, I'd still need the drawings for it. I need everything to do it, because we've got to go out to bid with it. And when we go out to bid, we've got to present.
Okay, I had this, and I'm not an engineer either, but I did have this exact conversation with Situate Precast today,
Mhm.
that his explanation to me was the circular concrete or corrugated steel is off the shelf. They do it in 4 or 5 foot sections. He quoted me a price. When I asked about the box culvert, he said that's a whole different ballgame. You need drawings, and then that's made specific to the job.
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
Okay,
But
so,
but you would also need the drawings, you will need those drawings to go out to bid. Because when a contractor bids on it, he's got to be able to see what he's bidding on. So we would have to change if we found out after a little investigation that the concrete pipe, the RCP, was more reasonable. We would then go and have head walls constructed, drawings done, again, for the RCP, and then. So those drawings, now, when I go out to bid, the bid documents, which are about that thick.
And there's no head walls with a box culvert.
There is with the box, yes,
Okay.
both have.
Okay.
Both, the head walls stay, okay? It's that pipe, we're talking only about a box versus the pipe. That's what you're talking.
Right.
So that's the difference. But when we go out, and this is advertised, and they call for those set of prints, we gotta have those set of prints for
Right.
them. That's the difference. So if we come back in the 8th of November, right?
September.
Oh. We come back, and I can tell you, per linear foot, the box is $120, and the pipe is $90, and we do the math, then we can say, well, is it gonna be worth it to us to have the engineer redraw this and change our bid documents, which we have?
Right.
So you've got to look at those options. Either one of the RCP or the box will do the job.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that, but the cost, I think there has to be the total job. You know, if you install the circular pipe, the RCP is, what is that, reinforced concrete?
Reinforced concrete, yes.
So, the job finished, which is more, they both do the job. The box culvert does the job, the RCP does the job, but when you're done with the construction, what's the number? They both have the same, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Okay.
but they both have the same lifespan.
Yes.
And so then it's just the cost of it, one's being constructed, one isn't, and
That's
then,
correct.
so,
That's what the difference will be.
right.
Now can I escape?
yep, I think so.
Thank you very much.
Really good, Martha, I got you all set.
Next up is a review and approval to edits to legislation bill H3640 regarding recall elections in the town of Bolton.
As I said in the briefing memo that I sent you, this goes back to the annual town meeting of 2015, where a bylaw was proposed to the townspeople to establish procedures for a recall election. The Board of Selectmen at the time had seen what was going on in an area of town, and in a neighboring town, relative to them not having any such bylaw and having to craft one to react to a certain situation. So at the time, I recommended to the board that, at the time we had no brewing controversies, so no one could say that anyone was being targeted for a recall. So it was brought forward to town meeting, it was approved, I believe it was unanimously, but I'm not certain. And then it went off to the legislature, where it had to go through the legislative process. It spent some time in the Committee on Third Readings, and then the wording was sent on to the Secretary of State's office for review. And while it looks like there's a lot of edits, from what I can see and what Representative Hogan's office told me, was that with one exception, it's really consistency of wording and that type of thing. The only thing of any substantive change that I picked up, maybe I missed something, was we Bolton chose to go with the number of days to hold the election to be in the range of 45 to 60 days. And the Secretary of State these days feels that 64 to 90 is a better range. 64 to 90 is actually what they came back with for the Lancaster recall bylaw. But Pam Powell, the town clerk at the time, proactively went off and reviewed the bylaw, the approved bylaws for 9 different towns. And she actually put a matrix together, and there were bylaws out there, 2 towns actually, that had 45 to 60 that had been approved by the state at the time. But I guess the philosophy of the state has changed, so the Secretary of State wants to see towns going forward using 64 to 90. So that's the substantive change. And again, I may have missed something, but from what I could see and what the rep's office told me, everything else is really pro forma wording. So the Board of Selectmen would need to vote to accept these changes. We would need to document that you've done that, get everything back into the Secretary of State, and then it would be, I believe it needs to get to the governor's desk for final signature, but that should be a formality once that's done.
Yeah, I think you're right, Don. I mean, pretty much everything is either uppercase changed to lowercase or vice versa. 28th was the number, and the TH they changed to 28th. They actually wrote the words out. I think you're right. The only substantive change is the time frame, the 45 to 60. It's now 60.
64 to 90.
So that's really the only real difference that I can see in this. So I'm fine with the changes. A little extra time is
Interesting, that's the matrix that we use. Eventually did it.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, Pam did all that.
Sell that. So, gentlemen, have any questions? I don't.
No.
Okay. And then I'll entertain a motion to accept the changes as recommended by the Attorney General's office.
I'll move that.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Jonathan, would you like to see a copy of the matrix that was used?
All right. Next up is review and execute the lease agreement between the Bolton Seniors Housing Corporation and the Town of Bolton for 600 Main Street. So I'm assuming this is just the same agreement as we've had in the past.
Yes.
I did have a question, Don, on this, are they, so this is with the Bolton Senior Housing Corporation, but Bolton Senior Housing Corporation hires somebody else to act as their agent, right?
Yes.
And so it's that person that's responsible for the upkeep and grass cutting and things like that?
RCAP Solutions are responsible for the operations of the building.
I actually did Meals on Wheels, and I did a delivery there, and they were showing me, the people who lived there were showing me that the grass wasn't cut, things weren't trimmed, it was unkempt. And I know you made I think you made an outreach to that.
I made an outreach, we haven't connected, so what I'm doing, next week, I accepted an invitation to go over to a lunch, and I'll be meeting with the property manager.
Okay, great. And the property manager is hired by the Senior Housing Corporation's agent?
Should be RCAP Solutions, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Make a statement on that.
Sure.
Okay, the town, maybe people don't understand, the town gave the land to HUD, federal organization. They built the structures. They own that property. RCAP is hired to run the senior housing. We as I'm on the Council of Aging. We as the Council of Aging are tenants there. One of the 28 tenants that they have in that building. We're allowed to use that structure for 15 hours a week, 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's it. The rest is senior housing under HUD, which is a federal organization.
So that's what we're paying the rent, $205.98
A month. That means we don't pay for any utilities. We're allowed to use the common room where we meet, have different functions. We're allowed to use the kitchen, restrooms. We have an office upstairs and 2 rooms, one to use for meetings, one for storage. who are allowed to use what they have as a library, and that's where our outreach director is in, and our program director, who has 8 hours a week to work.
That's the
And
extent.
our director only has 20 hours a week.
So you're saying you want more hours?
No, I'm just saying, I'm explaining that the town does not own that building. It's not
Right.
town housing.
Right.
That is federal housing. We're the only town around that really doesn't have a senior center, so we've been very good about it and accepting the fact that we only have 15 hours a week to use that stuff. From 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
That's what the rent is for. That's basically,
That's
that's the senior.
It's all on
We're
private.
executing that, be able to use the senior.
Right.
center. That's all this is.
Very limited time for our seniors who have built this town and made it into what it is that everyone's supposedly proud of and brings all these people into. Thank you.
And I'm fine with the document. I don't know if you
Me
don't
too.
have any issues. I'll take a motion to execute the lease.
Make a motion to execute the lease for Bolton Senior Housing between Bolton Senior Housing Corporation and the town of Bolton for 600 Main Street.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next up is a request for approval of an additional $100 in longevity pay for services of employees who have accumulated over 20 years of service.
I'll make a motion to approve an additional $100 in longevity service to employees who have accumulated over 20 years of service.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Next up is, next up is a discussion for pay changes to the ambulance squad. Hey Margie, how are you?
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
So, I don't know if you want, I think we kind of understand what's going on here, right? We talked about this in January. We had a little bit of a communication glitch. We're basically just looking to confirm or move forward, I guess, right?
Well, actually, when this came up originally some time ago, and talking with Don, I actually went back and watched that advisory committee meeting. And I watched the whole section where you had come in and discussing the budget and everything else. And at the end of that meeting, there was a decision to not to take a vote on any pay increase that you wanted. There was a discussion earlier on about setting up a task force to review a number of things. I think towards the end, when it was getting close to have a potential vote, the chairman of the advisory committee reached out and asked the opinion of the selectmen and basically gave my opinion that, while I agree it was a worthwhile thing to do, that, we really didn't have the authority within the confines of an advisory committee meeting to increase pay, and that we would take that up at a future meeting or a future, whatever we were gonna do. And that didn't happen. So I think it's pretty clear, not that I was fully in support of it, but I think the agreement was to have a discussion and potential vote later on, and that hasn't happened yet. So I don't think there's any, at least from my perspective, any ambiguity that anything was agreed to at that point. The only thing that was agreed to was to have another subsequent discussion and make a decision.
So then we can have a conversation now. Basically in January when I came to advisory, one of the things that we did talk about is the fact that we really need to start gradually, adding services, because we've been struggling for 25 years to man the ambulance the way that we're going now, and it's a miracle that it's lasted this long. But what we're seeing, towns around us that just aren't able to do it anymore, but call personnel. One of the steps I think we need to take is focus on retention, because in the past we've focused on recruitment, but the fact remains that there's not trained, skilled, dedicated people out there that are going to do this kind of work. Or they're out there, they're just not necessarily in Bolton, and we need them to be within 6 minutes of the fire station. So one of the things that I think that we need to do is increase. We haven't had an increase in about 10 years. I think we need to increase to retain the membership that we do have. It's a small increase. I don't think that, I don't think that anyone who's on the edge is going to say, oh, I got that increase, but at least it shows support, and it shows that, that we're appreciative of the job that they're doing. So the thought that we had asked for was to, right now we have a base rate of it's a 2-hour minimum, and it's $35 for the first 2 hours, and then it's $17.50 for every hour after that, but it's prorated. So if it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, it's prorated on the What we'd like to see done is we would like it to go to 40 at the first 2 hours, and then 20 for every hour thereafter, which is pretty in line with what towns around us are doing. I think Lancaster gets 19 and change per hour. I don't think that they have the 2-hour minimum, but they go up. And I apologize, I do remember that we talked about there being an additional meeting if needed. I was under the impression that if there wasn't an additional meeting, since our budget didn't change, by the way, so the conversation with advisory was that they actually had wanted to reduce our line item for wages because we were overfunded in that.
I recall that.
Yeah, and so this is actually not going to affect the budget because they did not reduce that. I left the meeting under the impression that it was, well, it wasn't necessarily a done deal that night, that it was going to happen.
Mr. Coney, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, the recollection of the conversation I do agree with. I can't remember if all 3 selectmen were there that evening, but I did absolutely throw the conversation to you since I know that you, Stan, were at least there.
The other 2 selectmen were there,
Okay.
but I think I was the only one that spoke.
But in terms of setting the hourly rate, yeah, it's not something. I have zero control over negotiating an hourly rate. So we finalized the budget, and my thought is if that's between you guys up there, and the money's in whatever the budget is what the budget is, and we've gone back and forth with the ambulance for the past couple of years just because of the uncertainty in the nature of the call in terms of what type of call is it, how long are they going to be out there, just how many calls are there going to be. So in some cases, lines have been, there's been significant money left in the budget and rolled forward back to the general fund.
Right.
In other cases, and it's been fairly consistent. I'm confident that I generally see Margie, in June, asking for a transfer request. So.
And did you see her in June?
I did. So while that does somewhat support her narrative in this situation, I also know it is a function of the volume. right? We do our best in terms of keeping it there, and again, I personally would rather err on the side of caution than keeping it on the lower side, and if she's running short, she does have a safety valve to come to us by way of an advisory transfer, or if it's interdepartmental.
Yeah, and the fact that that line item is overfunded right now is indicative of the problem I'm saying, because, a couple of years ago, we were averaging 4 people a call. I would say now, we're averaging 2.5 people a call. So I do have to manage the volume of calls, but also the volume of people coming on. And probably 5 years ago, we were concerned because we had too many people showing up. So the fact that it's overfunded,
Marty took very good measures to deal with preventive measures to make sure we don't have subject matter people showing up.
Well, the squad does too. We have an app on our phone that says who's going, and very often people say, "Oh, I was about to go, but I looked and I saw that there were 3 people going, so I didn't go."
Now, I recall both of you, Brad and Mark, that in that discussion back in January at the advisory committee, I recall there was a figure of about $7,000 or so that we were potentially talking about reducing, based upon call rates and run rates and everything else. But I think the decision was potentially in anticipation of the subsequent discussion and needing to make this adjustment, that the decision was to leave, not take that 7,000 or so away, but just leave it in the budget.
Exactly. And Marty was, I think, maybe the only department head who came in with a level funded budget, which is what she was asked to do.
Right.
And knowing that I generally see her at the end of the budget cycle anyways. So I was hesitant to, cut any, relative to the previous year, yes.
Right. So, given that we sort of left that 7K in there, I don't think we had a discussion that evening, January, of, if we were to go to the 35, 2 hours to 40 and 2, and the 20, and all that stuff, what that impact would be given, sort of what you would see over the course of a fiscal year.
Yeah, it actually probably would be about $6,000.
How can you?
Yeah, it just works out that way. Because if we have to do 400 calls a year, and let's say on average we have 3 people per call, that's what that.
So in theory, what we did in January was to ensure that we had that money. Okay, so, but obviously it wasn't officially approved, and nothing's happened. So, Don, I'll turn to you. If we were to do something in that vein, what would be the process? Because in theory, it's already been baked into the budget, and we didn't increase the budget to do this. It was basically the wage line item that you had from the previous fiscal year, which we preserved. So in essence, the request here is not necessarily to spend more money. It was we had the money there already, so it's not going to impact. It's not going to impact this year's budget at all, because we had anticipated this process, this change. So what would be the process moving forward if we decided that we wanted to do this? And I'm assuming if we were to do it, it would be retroactive to the beginning of the fiscal year?
It would be if that's what you choose to vote. I mean, we could certainly do that. When the issue came up, and Donna asked me, how should I handle this? I said, keep it at the current wage, not to increase anything, and pay them at the 35. And then if the selectmen choose to make an adjustment, we can always go back and do a retro for the people that have already been paid. So if theoretically we're working within the existing budget, it's nothing more than the selectmen taking a vote to go from where it is now to wherever you take it, and then I'll just direct Donna for the next payroll to do whatever retros are necessary.
Barbara, did you have a question?
Yes, no, just basically a comment and then a question to follow. The ambulance, when it goes out and does a call, it serves the public, it serves the people. There's a company that the ambulance hires to bill for those calls, for the ambulance to transport someone to the hospital. When that money comes back in, that money comes back into the town's general fund. So that ambulance crew, that ambulance organization is bringing money back into the town. Even though they get money from the town to run it, they're bringing money back into it.
Right.
Is there someone who has looked at how much comes back in compared to what is spent?
I can answer that question, actually. So we bring in roughly, probably about $120,000 to $130,000 a year, based on, the acuity of the patients and the volumes that we see. But our budget is roughly $184,000.
And that money, Barbara, that you're referring to, that
That goes
money...
into the town's general fund.
And what goes into the ambulance?
It goes into the ambulance receipts fund, of which some of that money is used to finance their budget, but it's also used every 5 to 7 years to actually purchase a new ambulance, so that the townspeople are footing the bill for it.
So we
started in town don't understand there was money coming.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, we started billing probably about 12 or 13 years ago, maybe a little bit more. And you guys haven't bought, the town taxpayer hasn't bought an ambulance since.
Just so you know, but I'm in favor of this, and I said it in January, so...
Oh, I'm a member of the ambulance.
Yeah, okay, so, I'm cool with it, it's just that we just never had that other meeting. But as long as we know, we discussed it in January, we were planning for it, we kept the money in the budget in anticipation of this happening, and you're telling me it's gonna be roughly about the same amount of money, and I don't have a problem with it.
So on the agenda for tonight is a vote on the pay increase?
It's to discuss pay changes for the ambulance squad, which could lead to a vote. Whether it was a discussion and if there's a vote, that's fine. If it's a discussion and you want to defer it to another meeting, that's fine too. It's all on how you want to approach it.
But I think you were at that meeting as well in January, and,
It was, I have no recollection of taking a vote or there being a vote.
Oh, no, there was no vote taken in January.
The vote was taken by advisory about
Right.
budget, and I do remember now that there was a conversation about whether or not you guys needed to
Right, because if you go back and watch it towards the end, Brad asked about taking a vote for this, and then he tossed it to the selectmen, and I basically spoke and said, I think we're in favor of what they're doing. They have the money in the budget for it, but we should probably have a subsequent conversation or whatever summit meeting to discuss this, and that just never took place.
So we're in agreement there was no vote, so we're just starting a little fresh here. So
Correct.
I just have a couple of questions.
Okay, and that's fine, but just to set that expectation. So I went back to my squad, and because I'm very open and honest with them, and they all watch these meetings on TV, and they all expect a raise in July. So just to be very transparent about that,
They should go back and watch the meeting.
But no, and it's not necessarily on you. I mean, I take partial responsibility for this as well,
So I just have a couple of questions. So when was the last time there was a raise?
It's been at least 10 years.
10 years since there was a... So you've been making $35 for the first 2 hours for 10 years?
Yes.
Okay. And have you done a survey of the area towns, what they're...
We haven't, this time. I do know for a fact that Lancaster makes $19.50 or something like that an hour. So it's in
Berlin,
here.
Harvard, Stowe?
I'm not even sure that, I don't even know that they get paid, but it's in parity with departments that are set up with the way that they do it. Not all departments are set up the same way. Stowe is full-time,
So there's no parity there.
Stowe is full-time,
Yeah,
fire and ambulance, or?
yes.
So if, in terms of, because one of the things you said was about retention,
Yep.
and is there an effort to, so 6 minutes, where does the line, is it only Bolton? Is the
No.
radius only Bolton, or where
No,
does
the
it?
radius, we actually extend that out. So in fact, probably 2/3 of my squad don't live in Bolton.
Okay.
But we can't go, and that'll get us a little bit into Clinton, Lancaster, one member in Harvard, but we're talking like town lines, so we're pretty limited.
And is there recruitment efforts by the, do you do mailings or open houses, or?
No, because we would have to, I do periodically go through, OEMS has a website, and I go and I look at all the people who are in Bolton, and if there's a name I don't recognize, or a name that I recognize, and say, oh, you know.
Who's licensed or trained?
Right. Because, I mean, I can do recruitment. We have the Neshoba program where we run the class.
How much effort is it for someone to join the ambulance squad
It's a year-long process to go through the training.
before they're getting paid?
Before they're even certified to start going on calls.
So they don't get paid till that point?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, they'd get the training for free. It's free to town residents. It's actually free to Bolton, Lancaster, and Stowe residents. But
And just playing devil's advocate, so is there any town that doesn't have an ambulance squad?
no, there are some towns that choose to contract out to private companies. And that's something that we could look at. Unfortunately, our call volume is probably not high enough for that.
And what would that mean to
the
the town?
Well, like the town of Hudson, they don't pay anything for their ambulance. Now, they have a completely full-time fire department, but their ambulance, they don't pay anything for. But that's because their call volume is high enough so that when they bill out to insurance companies, they make that money back.
The company?
Yeah. We only bring in $120,000 to $130,000 a year, so that's not.
And would the response time change because where's the nearest ambulance that you would contract? Or would they take over your space?
They would take over.
Your space?
Yeah, it depends on how you contract it, but conceivably you could contract it to share resources with another town. We looked at that probably 12 years ago when we hired our first full-time employee, and the overall opinion was that we didn't want that. We wanted something in town. So if we want a private company to come in town, it's actually going to cost you more than we are.
I thought there was a second ambulance that comes.
So we do use ALS services. We have to by the state. There's certain times that we have to call for paramedics. They can give a higher level of care. Right now, we're fortunate in that we work very well with Woods and their station in Lancaster. So the way that works is they bill us per call, and we pay them directly, and then we bill out at a higher rate. We actually bill out at, I think, $20 higher than what we pay them, and then we collect in that money. So it's pretty much a wash. There is the chance that a patient doesn't pay the bill or doesn't have insurance, and we don't get paid for that. But I did a study one year, and I showed that with that $20 increase that we got, we had 3 calls that we didn't get paid for, and that extra $20 totally took care of it.
And so your annual budget is what?
$184,000.
And you take in what?
130 or 120, 130, depending on what.
So roughly there's a $54,000 shortfall that the town picks up?
No, because not all that money goes in. So at town meeting, they'll vote to move X amount of money to reserve reserve. So we will always want to keep enough money in reserve reserve so that when we need a new ambulance, we can pull that money out of there. So like last year, we got the Lucas out of reserve reserves. The new ambulance that we have now was $250,000. That came out of that fund. As well as, I think typically we've been doing like $50,000 or, I don't know, Brad, how much do we typically
50
pull?
rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah, about 50K they pull out to fund it.
So
So
Yes.
otherwise, we would be coming to you every 5 years for $250,000.
So the money that the reimbursement essentially is put in a separate account, and that's used to pay the buy a
Yes.
new ambulance or supplies or whatnot.
Yeah, but it is only accessible at town meeting. So it's not like I can pull
So
out
there-
of there annually, it's just, town meeting vote.
So there's a significant cost to the town to have an ambulance squad.
There'd probably be a higher cost to not have an ambulance, but yes. And when we actually spend a lot less.
Their budget's, she said, what, 184, and
Yeah.
we'll take 50 out, so the line item, the net delta is about $134,000, just their net budget.
And we, a lot of towns pay well above that.
And so, and I apologize for belaboring this, but, so if we contract it out, what would it cost the town? If it costs us
Yeah,
$130 now, what would?
I don't know, it would cost, they would have to, it would be a private company, so they'd want to make money.
Right.
And they'd have to cover their cost of having somebody 24/7. So my guess is it would cost several $100,000 more a year.
But I think we're kind of getting a little far afield. I think we're looking at going from 35 to 40 bucks. So I think we should deal with that, and if we want to have a separate discussion about.
Yeah, and I'm still interested in doing the task force, because I do think that we need to look at it. And it's not next year, I don't think, but I think we need to start increasing our resources, because I don't think the town wants to be in a position where overnight, they either have to hire a 24/7 department or contract.
I'm perfectly happy in a position to kind of vote on this if you gentlemen are, or if you gentlemen have questions or want to do something different, but I'm willing to entertain a motion to.
I'm just wondering about the context that this came up, and whether, initially when it came up, and whether we should kind of resolve it in that context.
I'm not sure I understand. I mean, this came up in an advisory meeting in January, and the decision was made to leave the money in the budget to cover exactly what we're talking about here now. But the decision was made not to take a vote at that time because the advisory committee did not have the authority to do that.
No, it came up in our executive session. That's what I was referring to.
I mean, to be honest, and not that I'm against it, but this is not what I expected for the agenda. I didn't expect that we were going to discuss a pay increase. It says discuss pay changes, but the background of it was what occurred in January.
Right, and you were there, so.
I know I was there, but for tonight's agenda, my expectation was not that we were voting on pay increases or not voting on pay increases. It was resolving, did we vote in January? That's what I thought.
Well, no, the intention was to discuss pay changes, whether or not the board wanted to change the pay for the ambulance squad or not.
Why don't we vote on it at the next meeting and continue?
So the problem is that we have a department who does this on a call basis. And it's very discouraging. I mean, we were extremely encouraged when I came back from that meeting, and people watched it. And, it was very nice to understand that we had everyone's support. I'm worried what the effect of not doing this is going to have on the department.
I think we're going to get there.
What further discussion or more information do you need that would necessitate delaying this until September?
Well, I just related it to how it was initially re-remembered. Don brought it up, if you recall.
But there's going to be a negative side effect to that as well. Because they're putting one group against smell it. And that's a dangerous place to
We
be.
can't go in that direction.
No, can't do that.
And because of that, I would agree that, and I would echo what Jonathan said, and I would put this over until the next meeting.
Barbara?
I thought Mr. Frame said he didn't realize he was going to vote on this, whether the board was going to. Right on the agenda, it says, discuss pay changes for the ambulance squad.
And I have to say that that's true, but there was extensive conversations today about my understanding of what that agenda item meant, and that was not my understanding.
Just as a note for people who might be watching, I don't even know if they realize we have one full-time ambulance fireman, one in the whole town.
I'm not in disagreement about any of this. It's just that this is not how it was presented for tonight.
Oh, and I read
To
it.
me,
Mr. Lowe, can I ask a question? This surfaced some time ago when I guess either Marty was asked talking to Donna or Donna was talking to you. Is that correct?
Yes, it would have to be early July.
Early July, and you notified the selectmen about this.
I called you, and then there was a subsequent discussion that took place relative to the confusion as to whether or not the pay increase had actually been approved. Because there was confusion about what did and didn't take place at the advisory committee meeting.
Right, and that discussion was held where?
last meeting,
It was
executive session.
Yes, but I'm not going to talk about what happened in executive
I
session.
just want to know when, okay, because then I relayed exactly what I relayed here this evening. So it probably should have been incumbent on the two of you gentlemen to go back and watch that.
Well, Tom and I did, Tom's right. I mean, we did have a fairly lengthy conversation this morning, and we talked about this specific agenda item, and I said, what I believe I said was that there was confusion of what happened at the advisory committee meeting, and I gave background on what happened. And I said, the ambulance, I said, Marty left that meeting with one understanding, the selectmen left the meeting with another. It has to be resolved, and we need to clean up what happened from the advisory meeting. I think a fair representation of what I said.
And that's what we did tonight, kind of, Brad and you kind of reviewed it. And I think that was an important step in the process of getting there.
Well, it's pretty clear what went on in that meeting. And we'll just say it discussed.
The last time we discussed it, it seemed kind of confused, so maybe we and Brad have been talking about it since. But
No, all you need to do is watch that meeting in January, and you can see for yourself exactly what transpired, and exactly what was discussed, and exactly what I said. So, I'm not sure what waiting another month is going to do, since, I mean, if you go back tonight or tomorrow and watch, it's very, very clear. There really is no, the only thing that was confusing as to whether or not it was going to go forward, and that's the only thing.
And the conversation I had with you this morning really focused on, was there a vote taken that I don't remember? And the answer was no, there was not a vote taken.
So I'm not necessarily, I don't understand what's going to transpire between now and the next meeting as far as new information on this. So what I'm going to do, just to throw it out there, I will make a motion that we approve the pay increase or the pay change for the ambulance squad from what was $35 for the first 2 hours to $40 for the first 2 hours, and it's $20 an hour subsequent, and it's prorated on a quarter hour basis. So that's my motion. You gentlemen can either decide to second or not, and if it's not second, then we'll just defer it to the next meeting. Hearing no second, then unfortunately the motion fails, Marty, and we'll have to bring this up at next month's
And I would ask that it be put on the agenda for the next meeting.
Do you need additional information? Do you need to put something together? I mean, I don't.
Not at the moment.
I would suggest that Tom and Jonathan, I believe it was the January 16th meeting? Well, Don can find out.
I think Dr.
And I would suggest you gentlemen watch the meeting when Marty was there. I think that will help to clarify.
I may or may not have the link to it, but I can certainly send you the date.
Yeah, well, Town Hall Stream, so that's it.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Marty.
Thanks for having me.
All right, next up is execute the warrant for the 2016 state primary. I'm fine with that. If gentlemen have no questions, then I'll take a motion to move that forward.
I'll move that.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next up is a request from Pam Powell, town clerk, to appoint election workers, which is attached.
And I'll make a motion to approve Pam Powell, the town clerk, appointing those election workers.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Next up is a request from the planning board to appoint Peter Driscoll, associate member. I was looking back at some earlier agendas, and didn't they not that long ago appoint John Carden as an associate member?
They did for the purposes of a...
Wasn't it, John Reese, is it?
Well, I know they switched.
Yeah, they did switch. But that was to be a temporary situation until they found someone else,
Yes.
wasn't it?
All right,
John Collins off the planning board.
all right.
And John, the other one was doing that.
Then I'll take a motion to,
Make a motion to appoint Peter Driscoll to the planning board as an associate member.
Second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we already took care of Frank.
I just wanted to jump back to the, do we have to take a vote on the design review board proposal?
That's a good question. You know, it wouldn't hurt to take a vote, just to have it in the record.
Well, actually, I don't really see, the design review board really has no experience in structural engineering. I mean, they're primarily involved in looking at aesthetics, and making sure that the structure that's being done sort of fits into the town character. But I don't think any of those gentlemen are structural engineers, and that's not really the purpose of the design review board. I think they would come more in line once the structural engineer is given its report, and then we then move forward with either repair or replace. And I would assume if it's more of a replace versus a repair, or both, that the design review board would get involved to make sure that, to your point, Martha, that what's there, what we have there now, and what we eventually wind up with is essentially the same. And that's, I believe, where the design review board gets involved, not necessarily in determining structural analysis issues, which that's really not the purpose of that in the first place.
Yes, Michelle talks to the architect, and I'm just proposing that the design review board be present at the meeting with the structural engineer, Mr. Lala, from the beginning. So I think there's a benefit to having them there as part of the discussion. Michelle talk is very detail-oriented, and I think she, bring a lot to the conversation, so.
How many members are on the design review board? How many members are? I just don't remember.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's always been 3, but it could be.
Well, I mean, if you want to make a motion, just to make sure that I include the design review board as much as possible, that's fine.
Well, I have to make a motion that the design review board is invited to the first meeting with the structural engineer and participates in the town hall political project from beginning to end.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you.
I don't know if there are any minutes.
Just trying to finish this.
So we have minutes to approve of regular session minutes for the meeting on May 12th, along with executive session minutes for the same night, May 12th, and regular session and executive session minutes for the meeting on May 26th. We will take a motion to approve.
I'll move that.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any other business, relevant business we need to address tonight? Hearing none, we will be closing out of open session, we'll be going into executive session, and we will not be planning on returning to open session this evening. And we'll be going into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to the collective bargaining as the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position. A motion to move into executive session.
I'll make a motion to move into executive session.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Roll call.
Keith?
Here.
Wasaki?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.